Well, I want to welcome everyone joining us today. Um, we're excited to have you here today. We have some that have registered in this webinar, this live event, and we also have those that are watching live. So thank you for joining us. I want to welcome you formally for you viewers today and for all those that are joining us today for the Agricultural Readiness Program. We are excited, have been working hard, and excited for you to join us along with your fellow Native high school students in Oklahoma and those that are viewing from across the country. My name is Gabriel Bell. I'm the campus engagement manager here at the American Indian Graduate Center. We're the largest scholarship provider to Native students in the U.S. I'm a member of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes and grew up in Guam and Oklahoma. As a worker here on staff, we're always inspired for those of you that can join the programs that we share with you throughout the year. This year's Agricultural Readiness Program has been brought to you by American Indian Graduate Center in collaboration with Native American Agriculture Fund and Oklahoma State University. We do know the modules that some of you have been involved in so far, the information that has been shared in those formats as well as today are going to be helpful to you in your educational journey. And we've been excited to see all of those of you who are participating. I just want to give a really big thank you to all those that have been involved. Really want to recognize you students, number one, and all those that are supporting you, your educators, your guidance counselors, your FFA advisors that have been sharing some of this information with you up to this point. I also want to thank Oklahoma State University, the Native American Agricultural Fund, and those who have made this program possible for today. So we just want to really thank you for that. Today you're going to enjoy this live event in this format. There'll be a few people who are going to be sharing some really encouraging words and some words of advice to help you think about your future, maybe considerations you have for college, universities, different majors. We will be focusing in on agriculture and those related fields. So those of you might be on the fence, maybe you might be still thinking about things, but that's what we're here today to talk about. So thank you again for joining us in that. We are broadcasting this live, so it's going live across the nation. We have viewers that are in now. Some of them will be joining us here in just a moment. But with that said, let's go ahead and get things started. We're going to have Angelique Albert, Executive Director, be opening us with an address today, and I would like to introduce her to you now. Angelique Albert has dedicated her professional career in service to tribal communities and creating positive impacts. As Executive Director of the American Indian Graduate Center and American Graduate Center Scholars, she leads the nation's largest American Indian Alaska Native scholarship organization, which has provided over $15 million annually in scholarships to students from over 500 tribes in all 50 states. Prior to her work at the American Indian Graduate Center, Ms. Albert has served as Executive Director of Salish Kootenai College Foundation, where she was instrumental in planning, implementing the successful launch of their first $20 million capital campaign. She also served as Associate Director of the National Indian Business Leaders Organization. She has served in various roles in philanthropy, including Lead Native American Program Officer for the Beaumont Foundation of America and External Grant Reviewer for the Case Foundation. Ms. Albert's early career began serving her own tribe as a legal intern, court-appointed special advocate, and chief juvenile probation officer. Ms. Albert currently serves as a member of the Obama Foundation's My Brother's Keeper Alliance Advisory Council. Additionally, she serves as ACES Tribal Nations Advisory Council. She served as a board member for the Potlatch Fund, as well as a board member of the SNK Gaming LLC, one of the tribal corporations, with 4 subsidiary firms owned and operated by Confederated Salish Kootenai tribes. Angelique has a BA in Human Services and a Master's of Business Administration in special emphasis in American Indian entrepreneurship from Gonzaga University. With that, I give it to you, Angelique.
Thank you, Gabe. Wow, I didn't think you were going to read all of that. But good day, everyone. Like Gabe said, my name is Angelique Albert. I am a member of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes from Northwest Montana. And I am just so grateful for each of you for being here with us today. I know you could be somewhere else, and we're thankful that you're taking this time to really invest in yourself and invest in your education and get that guidance and direction that you may be needing. So I know that you've been participating in these modules throughout the week. There's a lot of great content there. And today is just going to be a wonderful day to hear from people at OSU and to really help guide you in that. If I were to give you one message, I know you'll be getting a lot of information today from our wonderful speakers, but also from our panelists. We have a panel of students that you'll be hearing from today, and they always seem to make such a great impact. So I know you'll be getting a lot of different messages, but my message to you today is that you're not in this alone. Like Gabe said, we've been doing this for over 50 years. And we are the largest scholarship provider, but more than that, we have academic advisors, and we have a staff that is here to help you to get to college and get through college. So my thing is network, build your community. I want you to consider everyone you hear from today to reach out to us through LinkedIn, to add us as a friend. We can be a resource to you, not just today, but after today. If you have questions, we're all here to help you. So I encourage you to use the chat feature today. If you have questions and comments, that's really helpful for us to be able to get you the other resources that you need. So like I said, we have a wonderful day for you today, and we're just so honored that you're a part of this program. And yes, thankful for the Native American Agriculture Fund for making this possible, and our partnership with OSU. With that being said, I do want to introduce our first speaker today. Our first speaker will be Miss Amber McGhee. She is the prospective student coordinator for Ferguson College of Agriculture at Oklahoma State University. Amber grew up in Dover, Oklahoma, and transferred to OSU from a small state school as a first-generation student for her bachelor's degree in agriculture communication. She has received a master's degree in agriculture communication with a certificate in nonprofit management. During grad school, Amber worked with prospective students and found a passion for student development and being a support system for those students around her. She began her professional career at OSU after completion of her master's degree in 2018, where she focused her efforts on first-year students and their transition into college, as well as student development for freshmen, sophomores, and transfer students on the college level. She now works with potential students and their families to discuss the many opportunities OSU and the college has to offer. And now they can make OSU their home. She's here today to talk to us about finding the right college and selecting the right major. So without further ado, Miss Amber McGhee.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I know Angelique gave you a little background information on me and who I am, and I'm excited to be able to share my passion for OSU and the Ferguson College of Agriculture with you today during my session about college preparedness and just all the opportunities that we have to offer, because I know just from my experience with different events, when students hear agriculture, sometimes they just think animals and plants and machinery. And when in reality, agriculture is so much more than that. And I'm excited for you to be able to hear from Dr. Moss today. He is actually the department head for our horticulture and landscape architecture department, which falls under agriculture. And it has a very big impact on what we do as a society and the way things look and the way we view things. And so I'm excited to be able to talk to you all just about where we can find your fit here at the university as well as in the college. But on behalf of OSU and the Ferguson College of Agriculture, we are so excited that you're here today. And I look forward to talking with you all and hopefully having further communication after this event today. So I will share my contact information. And I'm excited to be here, and I look forward to meeting you all and just showing you why I love this place and how it can potentially be your home in the future.
Thank you, Amber. Now we're going to go to our keynote address from Dr. Justin Moss. I'll introduce him now. Dr. Justin Moss serves as professor and department head of Oklahoma State University's Horticulture and Landscape Architecture program in OSU Ferguson's College of Agriculture. Dr. Moss is affiliated with the Kiowa tribe, the Cherokee Nation with the Six Killer Clan, and the Muskogee Creek Nation, and is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. He received his Bachelor of Science and Master of Science in Horticulture and a PhD in Crop Science in 2005 from Oklahoma State University. He previously served as director of the University of Wyoming Sheridan Research and Extension Center from 2005 to 2008. He then became a faculty member in OSU's Department of Horticulture and Landscape Architecture in 2008. And in March of 2020, he began serving as a department head. Dr. Moss has served as chair of OSU Faculty Council Diversity Committee and currently serves as chair of OSU's Inclusive Excellence Advisory Board and as president of OSU Native American Faculty and Staff Association. He is here also to partner with OSU's Center of Sovereign Nations. So with that, we thank you, Dr. Moss, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome, my name is Justin Quito Moss from Oklahoma State University, and I'm happy to be here with you today. I'm just gonna share a little bit of who I am and how I got to where I am in my academic career. Tell you a little bit about my background, and I'm going to share not a lot of slides, but just a few slides with you. And first of all, again, my name is Justin Quito Moss. So I'm here at Oklahoma State University in the Department of Horticulture and Landscape Architecture. And actually, the first thing I would like to do is just share a story with you. And this story is actually a little bit about my name. So my name is Justin Quito Moss, and the name Quito is a Kiowa name. And so I'm going to share a story with you here about that name, Guitone, or as we say today, or spell today, Quitone with a Q. So this is actually a story from my great grandfather, and a story when he was very young. So he was this is a story that he related back when he was just a young boy of about 8. The late 1800s now. Okay, so here's a story he told. He said, I had never taken a scout. He was 8 years old. He said, I was too young to go on the raids, and the wars were over, and soldiers had driven us onto the reservation while I was still a boy. But I used to like to sit around the fire and listen to the old men tell stories. And they would tell stories of the great days on the warpath, and stories around the Arkansas River, the Cimarron River, and south of the Red River. So we're talking about the Texas-Oklahoma border there. So two of the best storytellers were my grandfather, Anzate, and his friend, Sin Gudo Captain. And one night they were arguing and boasting among themselves. And Anzate said, you claim to be a warrior, but I don't see any scars on your body. And Sengudo Bragg said, I have some, look at this. And he had been wounded during a fight when the Kiowas captured a war bonnet from the Cheyennes. My grandfather had never been wounded, but he was a brave man. He said, I walked from northern by the Arkansas River, of course, these are the current day names, far down into Mexico. He said, I wore out 20 pair of moccasins, and you never did that. I couldn't keep quiet, said my grandfather, as an 8-year-old boy now. He said, I wish I had a chance to prove how brave I am. So this is the young 8-year-old speaking up. He wants to prove how brave he is. And so the old man laughed at him. He was only 8 years old. So on the following day, the next day, after that night, they went out toward the Cap Rocks, where the town of Godibo, Oklahoma is now. So Sengudo rode up on his pony and asked the young boys to come out and to get some coyote pups out of a den. And several went, including my great-grandfather, and including some of his friends, Santo, Doyete, White Arrow, his brother, and of course himself. Also, his grandfather, his grandmother, and Santo's mother were also there. So the old man said to him, get everything ready. We're going to dismount. We're going to go out and test out these young warriors.
So it was for my great-great-grandfather. It was his chance. He ran to go to the den. He was the first one to volunteer. The other boys weren't in much of a hurry. So they gave him a strip of rawhide to tie around the leg of a coyote pup. So he crawled in the den. It was very deep. It was dark. It stunk. And something was whimpering in there. So he laid very still for a moment. He reached his hand in and he caught something hairy. And it was a tail. And he fastened the rawhide to it. And he began to scramble out backwards as fast as he could out of this hole, dragging the animal after him. And when he was almost clear of the cave, there was a terrible snarling. And lo and behold, it was a gray wolf, not a coyote. And he had captured a wolf pup, not a coyote pup. And the gray wolf mother came out snarling, teeth showing, after my young great-great-grandfather. So all the people were not scared. They were laughing at him and roaring with laughter. The old warriors were laughing at him as he was trembling out of that cave. So they rode around again and found another den. And now all the rest of the boys were pretty scared and they didn't want to go in. And they tried to encourage him, but they wouldn't do it. So my great-great-grandfather's older brother tried to go in the next hole, and he couldn't quite fit, he said. And he said, I can't make it. The hole's too small. So they tried to get their other friends to go, and they objected. One said they saw a snake in there. So they backed out. So now my 8-year-old great-great-grandfather says, I'm going to try again. He wanted to be the big man. So it was very dark, and he grew in the next door, in the next hole. And he was thinking to himself, maybe there's another wolf in there or some evil god of some sort. He wasn't sure. But he crawled in slowly. The rocks and the dirt were crumbling, and it was a cave to him, but he saw a black tarantula crawl across his wrist. He wanted to quit and back out, but he didn't. And so in the darkness, he saw a glowing pair of eyes, and it was starting to quiver all over. He reached his hand, expecting something to bite it off, but he grabbed something soft and furry. And it squirmed out backwards as fast as he could, and so did the coyote pup this time. And he did it. He had grabbed the coyote pup. So now this time, instead of everybody laughing when he crawled out of this next hole, everybody was cheering for him. This young 8-year-old had done the job. The old men were smiling, and the other boys' eyes were big and staring at him. But they were all very proud. And his grandfather was pleased when he was able to hand over that coyote pup. And then they said, who's next? And all of a sudden, the hole must have got bigger because his brother could all of a sudden fit in the hole now. And he went in and grabbed the pup, and so did all of his friends. So did they want them for pets? No, they did not. What they did was they knocked them on the head and put them in a sack, and then the women made a fire and brought up a kettle, and they singed the hairs off. They cut it open. They took out the liver and the yellow leaf fat, and they roasted those delicacies. And my young 8-year-old great-great-grandfather enjoyed every bit of it. Then she dumped the pups in the boiling water and cooked them until they were tender. They took the skin off, they salted them, and enjoyed them for dinner that evening. My great-great-grandfather said it was tender and juicy and one of the best meals he's ever had, probably because he was part of catching the dinner. So what he said was this was my medicine. And so after this event, they named me Guiton, or Quiton. And what that name basically means is wolf tail. So this is a picture of my great-great-grandfather as a young man, probably in his 20s there. And this is a picture of him in the bottom left there with his eyes shut later in his life. And actually the man on the back right there is my great-grandfather, Fred Quiton. What's interesting about my great-great-grandfather Quiton there, he went by the name of Jimmy as they went through the Kiowa Reservation there at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. So Jimmy Quiton is what he ended up being called, Jimmy Quiton. So that's my great-great-grandmother there with him. But actually, when Jimmy was young, he had 2 wives, which was very common in the Kiowa tradition. So he had 2 wives. So it's a very large family. And in my great-great-grandmother's side of the family, there were actually 8 8 children. So one of those was Fred Quitone, who you see pictured there, with his wife, Laura, 6-killer Quitone. So I'm part of the 6-killer and Quitone clan, and that's how my great-great-grandfather got his name. And that's where I carry on the tradition. There's many Quitones down around Lawton, Oklahoma, and they're all across Oklahoma, really. And that's where that name comes from. Wolf tell is what it means. So the first part is wolf, the last part is tell. So what's interesting about this is Fred Quitone and Jimmy Quitone. You see that middle picture. What my great-great-grandfather advised my great-grandfather to do. So what Jimmy advised Fred to do was he said, he kind of lined out all of his children. And to Fred Quitone, he said, I want you to move to the city and I want you to be a businessman. And so actually Fred Quitone moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that's what he did, is he spent his life as a businessman in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And of course, through that, eventually, from this side of the family, my mother was born, and so I was actually born because of that. They were in the Tulsa area. I was born in Indian Health Services Hospital in Claremore, Oklahoma, and that's where I grew up. Really, is I grew up here in Oklahoma. And when I was very little, my father got a job in southeastern Oklahoma in McAllister, actually part of the Choctaw Nation down there. So, so when I was very little, we moved to McAllister, Oklahoma. It's in the southeastern part of the state. And actually that's where I spent most of my younger years and went to high school at McAllister, Oklahoma. And as I went through there in high school, I eventually graduated, and for us, we had a small junior college there, not too far from McAllister, called Eastern Oklahoma State College. So for me, my route was when I was sitting where maybe many of the students here are today in high school or right after high school, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. But I did know I liked being outside. And I really enjoyed the outdoors. And you might not think about Oklahoma this way, but actually as you get down to eastern Oklahoma, southeastern Oklahoma, there's actually a lot of trees and there's a lot of timber in that part of the country. And so I really enjoyed being outside in the trees. And I actually started my career, academic career, majoring in forestry. And I went to Eastern Oklahoma State College and started out in the degree field of forestry. But it was a little bit of a longer journey than that. For me, I would say I was not quite ready for college. And so actually what I did was the summer after I graduated high school, I just took a summer course through Eastern Oklahoma State College. And so I took English. You know, everybody has to take English, right? So I took an English class and got credit for that. And then I enrolled in an algebra class. After that, got credit. And so I actually didn't jump right into full-time student status. And also at that time, my brother, I have 2 older brothers, okay? So my older brother was majoring in business in Ada at East Central University here in Oklahoma. So I actually enrolled in a couple of classes over there, and I thought, well, I could just kind of hang out with my brother and just take a class or 2 over there too. And, you know, I didn't care if my classes came from Eastern Oklahoma State or from East Central University or wherever, as long as I was getting some college credit. And I thought, well, I could do one or the other or both. Well, the problem was, as I got farther away from home with my brother over in Ada, I actually ended up not enrolling in classes, but not going to classes. And a lot of times that's what happens to young folks when they're not quite ready. And so that didn't work out for me. So I went back to Eastern Oklahoma State and And what I did actually is I just worked and would take a class or two here and there. And so I was worked at maybe you've heard of Mazzio's Pizza. So I was a proud employee of Mazzio's Pizza, and I would go to work and I would cook pizzas all evening, and I enjoyed doing that. And I would take some classes during the day, and then later on I would help out and deliver those pizzas. So I would deliver pizzas and take classes during the day. And I kind of honestly, I think that was good for me. And it helped me to kind of think through some things. You have a lot of time to think whether you're baking a pizza at Mazzio's or whether you're delivering that pizza at Mazzio's. And you start to think about, okay, everything is becoming real now. This is serious. What would I like to do with my life? I enjoyed my job, but I was just thinking about, is this something where, do I want to work my way up and try to become a manager of a Mazzio's or something like that? That would be bad, but kind of learn how everything works from the bottom up and work your way up. And for me, the restaurant life was not where it's at. Something was pulling me to be outdoors or outside. And I still had that kind of dream in my mind that maybe I'd major in forestry at Eastern Oklahoma State College, and still enrolled in classes over there, getting through that. And eventually what I did was I talked to an advisor at Eastern Oklahoma State College. And what I was surprised about is, as I was talking to him and the conversation was going on, instead of talking me into the career of forestry and maybe trying to get an internship or something in that, he kind of talked me out of it. And he said, what you ought to do? You ought to take a look at Oklahoma State University. And they have these great programs up there. And at the time, I had a great chemistry teacher at Eastern Oklahoma State that I really enjoyed. And I told my advisor, I was like, yeah, I really like this chemistry class. That I really like the professor that's teaching me. And he said, well, what you ought to do is go look at Oklahoma State and look at weed science. He said that's a lot of chemistry, and you learn a lot about chemicals, and it's you're dealing with plants and outdoors. And I never even heard of weed science. And actually, to be straightforward, I'm not trying to be goofy or joke. When I heard the word weed, I thought of something totally different. And so weed science, I learned, was actually this field of study where they look at agronomic crops and row crops and horticulture and everything else. And they look at these, let's say you're trying to grow wheat, or you're trying to grow corn. Well, if you have unwanted plants in there, those are called weeds, right? A plant out of place, or a plant where you don't want it, is a weed. And there was actually a program at Oklahoma State, a weed science program, where they studied the biology of these weeds, and they studied how to control these weeds through cultural practices or chemical control or otherwise, right? And so it got me to thinking about Oklahoma State University. Well, about the same time, again, I was kind of tired of being indoors and cooking pizzas and delivering pizzas. And so I just went to, back in these days, there was something called the unemployment office, right? And so I actually went there and I just said, hey, are there any odd jobs I could do around McAlester, Oklahoma? And you could do that back in these days. I don't know if you still can or not, but I went in there and they said, yeah, we've got some jobs for you. Hey, could you go clean out this barn for us? There's somebody that came here and said they wanted somebody to go clean out a barn. It's like, sure. And they're like, and it just happens to be the director of the unemployment office. It's in his backyard. And so he hired me to do that. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just went to his house and cleaned out a barn in his backyard and tried to do my best and work hard, and he said, hey, you know what? You did a really good job. He said, I'm on the committee, like this chairman committee for the McAlester Country Club. And he said, hey, we're looking for students to help us for the summer. Do you want to come work up there? And I said, sure. So he got me a job at the country club. And as I started working up there, they said, hey, we could really use some help out on the golf course. Would you come out here and water, just water the greens for us? You just got to drive around all day and water the greens and make sure that they're doing well. And, it gets hot in Oklahoma in the summer, and we don't want our greens to burn up. So can you help us check the greens? So I said, sure. And that's what I did. So you can see there where, I didn't have a clear path of what I wanted to do after high school. I was just doing some odd jobs, taking some classes, just one or two here and there, kind of getting by. Got a job, and then ended up at this. Now I'm working at this golf course all of a sudden. And I remember these talks of people telling me about Oklahoma State. So now I'm working at this golf course, and now the manager of the greens and the golf course and all that, he's telling me what to do every day, right? So I'm going out watering greens, and he says, hey, did you know Oklahoma State, they actually have a major in horticulture, and you can learn about all these plants, and there's actually a degree program if you wanted to be like in the golf course world or horticulture. And I had no idea. I didn't think that people working out in the golf course had to have a degree to do that. I thought it was just, you just kind of knew how to run tractors and run mowers and stuff, and you get the job, right? But no, there was actually a degree program. So finally, I started thinking about Oklahoma State, and I actually came up here and looked around. And I can still remember the day. I still remember where I went. It was 304 Ag Hall. I had a meeting with my advisor, the third floor of Ag Hall. I can still see it clearly today. I had a meeting, and he said, hey, I'm glad to see you got some classes from Eastern Oklahoma. Oh, I see you also enrolled in some other university there, and maybe it didn't work out for you, but I'm glad to see you got some classes from Eastern Oklahoma State. These will all transfer, we'll accept all these credits, and hey, we can get you started in a major in horticulture here, and here's what it's going to look like, and here's what the next 2 years of your life is going to look like. You can take all these classes, and you can get knocked out, get you set up with an internship, you can get credit for it, and hey, you can get through here and graduate in just a couple of years, and we're going to take care of you. And I can remember walking in that room. Oklahoma State was a big campus to me. It was a scary place, honestly. And McAlester, Oklahoma is a small place, so I came up here to Stillwater, and there's, when I had class at Eastern Oklahoma State, there's 15 students, sometimes less than that. And now I'm coming up here to Oklahoma State, and I'm hearing like there's 300 kids in the class and things. So I'm kind of scared, to be honest with you, And so I come up here, but they made me feel at home. They made me feel good about it. They took care of me. And this was a long time ago. This was before Amber was here even, right? So this is a long time ago. But they took care of me. And that meant a lot to me. And so I did it. I transferred here and started my program in horticulture. And I liked it so much that I went all the way through. So, during my time here as an undergraduate, I had to do an internship. I did an internship in Little Rock, Arkansas for the whole summer. Over there was this guy that I ran to from the University of Arkansas just while I was doing my internship, and they were introducing me to people. And there's this professor from Arkansas, Fayetteville. He came over to Little Rock one day, and we just got to have lunch with him and stuff. And he said, hey, I'm doing this little research project. Would you like to help me out? What I'm doing is I've got this, what I'm looking at is I've got these grasses, and I'm testing, and I'm looking at these organisms in the soil. And these organisms attach to the roots of plants, and they're beneficial for plants. They're called mycorrhizae. I was like, what in the world is that? So I was interested. And he taught me about mycorrhizae and plant roots and symbiotic relationships with roots and mycorrhizae and pulling nutrients into plants. And it was all this neat stuff. And I was like, what in the world? I didn't know about this. And I was like, that is so interesting. And what happened, I came back from my internship, and I started talking to my professors about research. And they said, oh yeah, did you know you can do research here too? And some people obviously come here, get a bachelor's degree, and go out and get a job and have a career, but there's some people that will go on and get a master's degree and really start to get into research. And I was like, really? Tell me more about that. I didn't know. And so he told me more about it. I was like, hey, I think I want to do that. I think I want to do research. And I applied. And you know what? I was, because of you know, school wasn't my first priority coming up. I was working full time and taking classes on the side. So there's probably times I could have got an A or a B, but instead I got a C or a B, you know, in some of my classes. So my GPA was not the most stellar coming up through Eastern Oklahoma State. And then as I got to Oklahoma State University, you know, that was a rough transition for me. And my first semester was pretty rough. And I tried hard, but it was just hard for me. It didn't come natural to me. And then as I started getting my Hort classes, then I like made all A's because I loved those classes and loved what I was doing. But there was this kind of, it was like a linear grade. You know, I started very low and kind of worked my way up higher and higher. But because of all that, my GPA was not, I didn't have a 4.0, that's for sure, right? I was more like 3.0. And so you have to have a 3.0 to get into graduate school. And I was just right there on the line, or just barely made the cut and went into graduate school. And what's neat about that is then in graduate school, now I'm doing a master's now, and I get to focus on research. And I really get to study plants and plant science and horticulture and learn really what's going on. But in that, what they do is then now they're asking you, okay, you're a master's student. We're going to bring you in on a graduate assistantship, and we want you to help teach a class. I was like, sure, I can handle that. And so my advisor had me be a TA, or teaching assistant. And he actually, what he did was he let me teach his labs. And so what happens is this class would have a lecture and a lab component in horticulture. So my professor would teach all the lectures, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then there was a lab component on Tuesday, and he said, hey, you take the lab over. And so I did that and taught labs for him. And I really enjoyed that. And I thought that was really fun. And again, I didn't realize that maybe I could do research and do some teaching too. And that really got me excited about students and teaching and doing it. So I loved research. I loved horticulture. I loved plants. I loved teaching. So I went on and did a PhD program and was able to continue teaching all through my PhD program. My professor let me teach labs all through that. Not only that, other professors said, hey, looks like you're doing a good job. Would you like to TA for my class too? So I actually did teaching duties for 3 different professors here during my PhD program. So that was fun. So I know that's a long drawn out story, but that's kind of, you know, my path was not, I was the top student in high school. I had a 4.0. I went to Oklahoma State as a freshman. I had a 4.0. I went to graduate school. I had a 4.0. No, I had a long and winding journey through this, and I think a lot of first generation, a lot of Native American students, it's not too. I'd say I'm probably not alone in that type of journey. So I finished all that, and I got to go to apply for jobs, and you know, I got my PhD now, okay, and I applied for jobs, and I went to apply for jobs. I went to K-State University for an interview. I went to there was a Massachusetts, okay, and the University of Wyoming, and then there was a couple of other non-academic jobs. They were more like industry jobs I was looking at. And the one I wanted least, the one I was least interested was University of Wyoming, because I grew up in Oklahoma, you know, family was in Oklahoma, and I didn't know anything about Wyoming. I never even really traveled a whole lot, other than when I got into grad school. You know, you get to go to a couple conferences here and there, but that's about the only travel. I'd only been in a plane a few times, you know. And so, well, Wyoming, they wanted me to interview. I went up there, flew up there, interviewed, and actually, I thought, wow, what a beautiful state. You know, I've never been there. And this is a picture of what it looked like in Sheridan, Wyoming. And that's where I was interviewing for a job. And it's like, wow, what a beautiful state, what a beautiful place, and what great people. And I quickly, you know, kind of turned things around and thought, wow, this Wyoming job looks really good. Luckily for me, they offered me the job. And so my first job was at the University of Wyoming. Now the campus is in Laramie, Wyoming. That's in the southern part of Wyoming, you know, closer to Colorado. But this job that I got was in the College of Agriculture at Wyoming, and they had an ag research farm in Sheridan, Wyoming. So now I'm up towards Montana. Like I'm just right by the Montana border. So I'm about 5 hours away from campus. But I took the job and I enjoyed every second of it. Really, really loved it there. And so, you know, that's where I started my career. I was not prepared for this job, but they offered me to be the director of this research station as a new graduate from a PhD program. And they gave me the duties. They said, okay, here's what we want you to do. We want you to manage this research station. It was 360-acre ag research farm. It was so we grew like forages, like grasses and alfalfa. And we had some fruit trees, like an orchard. We had a vineyard, a grape vineyard. We had lots of grass plots there. Said, okay, you're the director of that place. So you take care of that place, 360 acres. And also we want you to be an extension person. And so what that means is people are going to call the office here and they're going to ask you, maybe they have insect problems on their alfalfa, or maybe they have something going on with their trees, and you're going to go help them. And then also what we want you to do is we want you to have some research going. So we want you to go out and get some grants and do your own research and solve some problems for Wyoming through research. And then also what we want you to do is we want you to teach a class. We know you're up there in Sheridan, but there's a junior college there, and we want to start a program where University of Wyoming students can take classes at the University of Wyoming, but do that from the Sheridan location. So we want you to start teaching a class, and then let's develop this into a program where kids can actually get a University of Wyoming degree through Sheridan. And I was like, sure, that all sounds great. So because I didn't know any better, okay? But so I got to take care of a 360-acre research farm. I got to answer, you know, several emails every day, and usually 4 or 5 phone calls a day from ranchers and producers. And I got to teach a class there and also I established some research projects. And because I didn't know any better, I just thought this is normal and this is what you do. And I did all that. Well, come to find out, usually when you get an academic job, you have like an appointment, say you're 100% teaching and all you do is teach, or maybe you're 60% teaching and 40% research. So yeah, you teach 2 or 3 classes and then you spend the rest of your time doing research. But there are not any appointments where you have to teach and do extension and do research and manage a 360-acre research farm. But you know what? It was good for me because I didn't know any better. I enjoyed every second of it, and we were able to handle all of it pretty well. So then I was able to, a job opened up back at Oklahoma State. So for me, it's like, I loved Wyoming, spent some good years there, but man, a job opens up at your alma mater. I mean, you know, I owe a lot to Oklahoma State, and a chance to give back I thought was great. So I applied for a job back at Oklahoma State and was able to come back. Now at this job, they wanted me to be in horticulture department and really focus on grass development, but also really do more research and really study abiotic stress tolerance. And for me, so abiotic stress tolerance is just looking at how do plants respond to stress from like non-living things. So abiotic stress, what does that mean? Well, what I studied was, you know, how do plants respond during drought when they don't have enough water? That's an abiotic stress. Or how do plants respond from freezing temperatures, from cold temperatures, you know, that's an abiotic stress. Or how do plants respond when there's too much salt in the soil or too much salt in the irrigation water. That's an abiotic stress response. So that's what I've done for the past 12 years, is really study how they respond to drought, freezing stress, and salinity. And most of this work is focused on warm season grasses. And so you see a picture there of, like, it just looks like some pots of dead grass, because that's exactly what I did. Was I would do experiments and really stress out plants to the point of death, and then evaluate how that plant would respond to those conditions of drought or freezing temperatures or salinity. But also, we had a breeder, and he would give me all this germplasm, or basically all these plants, okay? And just like each one of us humans are different, right? Each one of those plants that he gave me were different genotypes or different specimens. So they actually have different genetic material. So they weren't necessarily all clones of each other, but they had unique characteristics. And so what I would do is go through all those, and I would find ones that could withstand drought or freezing or salinity. And then on through the years, as years go by, they'd go through a lot of other tests too, by other professors, by the breeder. We would test them not only at Oklahoma State, but we'd send them all across the nation to other universities, to other professors, and they'd test them out in their fields for us, or things like that. And pretty soon you find a plant or two or three that are doing pretty good. So we've released some grasses such as Latitude 36 and North Bridge, and lately Tahoma 31. And what's really neat about these grasses is where they've been really kind of popular is the really high-end, like sports facilities really like these grasses. And so what has kind of happened, very interestingly, is the National Football League, NFL, for instance, like right now, one of the hot teams is the Kansas City Chiefs. They just won the Super Bowl, right? And they got Patrick Mahomes, and he's a popular quarterback in the NFL for the Chiefs, and so they're a big deal right now. Well, guess what? They're in Kansas City. They have our North Bridge Bermuda grass as the base on their football field. And you start to look at, as some of these teams have picked that up, all of a sudden these other teams start to look at it, and they start using it on their fields as well. And then it kind of trickles down to college athletics, and they start to pick them up and use them. And what's funny about that is, we have a rivalry here at Oklahoma State with our friends down south in Norman, the University of Oklahoma, the Sooners. And, we have to admit, sometimes the Sooners get the best of us on the football field. It happens, right? And actually, they're going to play this Saturday. But on the OU Sooners football field, guess what grass they're growing? They're growing OSU developed Latitude 36 Bermuda grass on the OU, the Boomer Sooner, the Owen Field down in Norman. They're growing OSU grass. And even better than that, we've collaborated greatly with them to help them, as they've gotten that field established with the new grass and taking care of it. And they liked it so much that they put it on their softball and their soccer for their college athletics and for their practice fields and all that too. So it's been really neat, unexpected and neat kind of progression, from, I think back to sitting in the Mazzio's cooking pizzas all day long to getting to go visit like OU or Kansas City Chiefs or whoever, and checking out, inspecting their fields for the games and things like that. So it's kind of fun and kind of neat. The other part of my job at Oklahoma State was I got to work with people on how to manage water resources. So I had an extension appointment too in faculty here. And thankfully, being in Wyoming, I learned a lot about drought and lack of water. And then got to bring a lot of that back to Oklahoma. So that job really prepared me for that. And so now here the past 12 years, I've got to talk a lot about how do we manage water, especially in the urban environment, and there's just so much water wasted. There's just some pictures here of the three pictures on the left of there's a lot of landscapes around In this case, this is Oklahoma City, and you just see leaks and broken sprinklers and water flowing out of the ground. And so there, you think about that, it's like, wow, we take all the time and effort to take this water, to send it through a municipal water treatment plant, to get it up to drinking water standards for it's safe for human consumption. And then we take that same water and we just sprinkle it on the landscape. And not only that, we waste a lot of it that even where it's intended to go, such as to the plants or to the trees or shrubs, it never quite makes it. Instead, it runs down the sidewalk or down the road. So we're basically putting in a lot of time and effort to take water, treat it, get it up to human consumption quality, and then it just literally runs down the drain. And so we've spent a lot of time and effort to educate people of how to manage those water resources, how to think about water, and how to use it wisely and smartly. So I want to transition. That's kind of me and my story as a faculty member, and so, I'm not the top student. I'm not the A+. I'm not the valedictorian. But I just found my way, and I want to say that for a lot of students, that's just how it works. Now, I want to help those valedictorian and 4.0 students. They need help too, and they need some guidance too. But on the other end of that is those students that are a little bit leery or think maybe I don't know if I can make it, at OSU or somewhere like that. First of all, you don't have to start here. You can go to a junior college. Here at OSU, we have NOC, a good collaboration with them. So a lot of our students, maybe they are enrolled in OSU, but they actually take some classes at Northern Oklahoma College to get some of those basics out of the way. But also, something that I didn't have that we have now is something called the OSU Center for Sovereign Nations. So I just want to mention this. There's a director there named Elizabeth Payne, who's a dear friend of mine, but also just a person that has a heart for students, all students. But her job is to take care of Native American students on the campus of Oklahoma State University. That's her job. And she takes it seriously. And she does it well as her husband, John Cheney. And so this Center for Sovereign Nations is a really, really neat resource. If you're a Native American student and you're interested in coming to OSU and the Ferguson College of Ag, they're going to take care of you. Just like I told you, I remember meeting with that advisor in the third floor of Agricultural Hall at OSU. I still remember that very clearly, how they took care of me. Amber and others are going to do that. But also, it is nice to have a place, the Center for Sovereign Nations, where they understand that Native American background that you're coming from and that you have. And what's neat about it is there's no ID check. You come to the Center for Sovereign Nations, you don't have to pull out the CDIB card. You don't have to pull out the citizenship card. It doesn't matter who comes there. You're welcome. And there's students that are there that are Native American students, and there's students there that are not. But they just have an interest and a passion that they want to learn more about that. And so all are welcome. And so this is a really neat resource that maybe I think that is unique to Oklahoma State University. That this really is a home for students. And it doesn't matter what major, what background, where you're coming from. This is a safe place and a home, and somebody's there is going to take care of you and teach about sovereignty. And I think that's important, especially more than ever down in Oklahoma. I don't know if y'all have heard of the McGhee case or not, but sovereignty is important. And so you'll learn about that through this place. And partnerships are important. So I'm a partner with the Center for Sovereign Nations. And so whenever Elizabeth Payne gets any student that says anything about agriculture, she's going to let me know about it. And we're going to try to take care of them. So this has been fun for me, and a really neat group, and just a great. If any students interested in Oklahoma State, please visit the Center for Sovereign Nations. Obviously visit with Amber, and she's going to tell you more about that, but don't forget to make a visit to the center as well. Okay, the other thing is I am for the now. If we get to the College of Ag now, we do have a student organization. We don't necessarily have a Native American organization per se, but we do have Manners, and so I've served as the advisor for Manners for a few years, along with Jose Esconga. And really, this is through the leadership of our um, Associate Dean for Academic Programs, Dr. Cinda Clary. So through Dr. Clary's leadership, Oklahoma State University Ferguson College of Agriculture now has a Manners chapter, and have for a few years now because of her leadership. But what's nice about this group that I'm serving as an advisor to now promotes academic and professional advancement for minorities in agriculture, natural resources, and related sciences. And so I think this is a good outlet as well for a lot of our Native American agricultural majors here at Oklahoma State. And we do fun things. We go to before COVID, of course, we would go to the national conference, we go to the regional conference, we'd have a lot of activities and just fun things that we would do together for students to feel at home in the Ferguson College of Ag. So really, I know that's just kind of a brief introduction of who I am or where I came from, and really the point I wanted to make was, I'm not the A+ student, okay? I'm the 3.0 guy, and for any students that are thinking about coming through Oklahoma State University, we're here to help you. You will feel at home, and I guess I should say now too that I've transitioned. I'm no longer a faculty member here, but I have moved now to the department head role for horticulture and landscape architecture. And so and again, thinking back, to my upbringing, and to be sitting here as a department head is pretty comical in many ways, but it's pretty exciting and fun too. Just to think that this young Quitone boy, right, kid, to come up to be a student here at Oklahoma State, to be a faculty member, and now to be a part of the leadership team here is pretty exciting for me. So anyway, if anybody is watching this out there and you're interested in Oklahoma State, if you're just interested in college, the whole world is ahead of you, and you set a goal out there and work towards it, and you can meet it. That's for sure. So with that, I appreciate your time, and thanks for having me today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Dr. Moss. Appreciate you sharing all those words and the stories. I just was really, really getting into it. And of course, growing up in Oklahoma myself, I associated to a lot of the places that you named. And, I grew up in McLeod, Oklahoma, but thank you so much for sharing those encouraging words and words of advice. But at this time, we're going to move on to our next. I wanted to just let everyone know that's been in, that has shared the post. If you haven't done so, please share the live link, the registration link for this Zoom. I've done so. We've been doing that up to this point in the game so far. So be thinking about that. We're going to be taking just a short break here. Just give you an opportunity to reset, grab a snack, maybe refill up on a beverage that you're having. I just finished my cup of coffee, but I'm really enjoying what's been said so far, and I hope you are too. Again, share what you can with your networks that you have. As we've already noticed, you have opportunities to interact. We want you to be able to post some questions in the chat box, as Angelique had referred to earlier. As you listen to Dr. Moss and Amber share things, there might be things that you're thinking about, questions you might want to ask, maybe some comments you want to share. So use that chat feature, and we will address those and get any of your questions answered as we go through. So right now we're going to go ahead and take a break, give you some time to, like I said, to reset, and we'll return and have Amber talk to us about some more important information about your college prep, about the next steps in your educational journey. We'll also be doing some live poll questions throughout the program today. So this will allow you to also, share some of your thoughts on some really good questions to think about. We got a couple fun questions incorporated in there as well. So we're excited to see what you have to share in those. I'm going to go ahead and just check real quick to see if there's anything posed currently. Not yet, but we'll be sharing a poll question here shortly. So stand by for that. And let's go ahead and give you some time to take a little break. I won't talk too much. We have our first poll question coming up now. What is your favorite subject? You may choose more than one, multiple choice. So you might have one that sticks out in your mind. It might be difficult, maybe you're split between a few, but go in there and answer that poll question if you can, and we'll be sharing those results shortly. So take some time. We will return back here in 15 minutes. So go ahead and take some time. We'll be back here in 15 minutes. And as we're taking this break, I'm just going to share. I just really think the opportunity to to be with you here today. Again, you don't have to stick around. If you got to take a step away, that's fine. We're in the break time right now, so go ahead and do that. But for those of you that are still here and listening, I just wanted to just take some time to share a little bit about myself, a little bit more about myself. But like I said, I grew up in McLeod, Oklahoma, and went to high school at McLeod High School growing up, and ended up going to Oklahoma Baptist University. I was only 15 minutes away. But I've also lived in other places of the country, been away. I know that when I was coming through my high school experience, I didn't really have an idea of going to school far away, but it was really helpful for me to stick around close to home and have that support system, and also still continue to volunteer at church and in my community. And that really allowed me to connect and be around family and friends. So that was really helpful to me through my experience in college, because it was certainly one that was foreign to me as well. As Dr. Moss was sharing, come from small town Oklahoma, and Oklahoma Baptist University wasn't the largest campus, but certainly larger than I was used to. And I did do some coursework at University of Oklahoma as well. And that was, even though I wasn't there full time, the one or two classes I was taking was a good exposure to a large campus environment. University of Oklahoma as well. And that was, even though I wasn't there full time, the one or two classes I was taking was hear a little bit of feedback. If you got your mic on, you might just help us out and turn it off. But again, I just want to end with this short thought as we're taking this break. Again, we got another at least 11 or 12 minutes to go. So, again, take some time to decompress. We got a lot of Zoom meetings going on with the pandemic. So we want to make sure that we give you some time to, take a little break here. A lot of virtual environments that are going on. Maybe some of you are doing school from home. Maybe some of you are working from home. But I just to finish my thought that I was on just a moment ago, I just found that as Dr. Moss was sharing, I share a similar thought in really kind of being drawn to those interests that I had, and that's really what drove my selection of my major in college. I really enjoyed mathematics, and throughout high school, I took every math course that was offered. And when I found myself in college, not knowing what I would choose, I ended up choosing mathematics, and it worked out for me. Certainly tough, but we got through. And with all that said, as I talk to mentors and friends and family, just about kind of my process of going through school, it was always helpful to hear about some past experiences, and that's what you're hearing today. I'm excited for the other session that we're going to have with Amber coming back. I'm also excited about our student panel that we'll be doing here shortly thereafter. And you'll get to hear from other students, not only in Oklahoma, but from across the nation. We have a panel of college graduates and those that have been through the system and have their own special experiences. So I think that you're going to find some relevance in in one or two or maybe all of the panelists that we'll have there. So I'll be looking forward to that. Again, I'm just going to remind you, we got that poll going right now. So enter your answers there. I'll share with you what everyone has put in there for you, and we'll have a little fun with that. So I'll give you the rest of this 9 minutes or so, and we'll come back shortly. Excuse me, I was just thinking, as you're taking this break too, if you want to, check out some information, you can certainly go to the website for Oklahoma State University, check out the agriculture program, check out about those programs that Dr. Moss was just sharing about. You can also go to American Indian Graduate Center website. Again, we're the largest scholarship provider to Native students in the country. And we give out, lots of money, $15 million per year. We cover, thousands of students over the years, many coming from Oklahoma, many coming from the Southwest area, other states in the nation. The website's www.aigcs.org, and we'll put that in the chat feature here just momentarily. So while you're waiting during this break, if you want to just take a look at what programs have to offer at Oklahoma State University or American Indian Graduate Center, please feel free to do so. Also, as you're thinking about sharing the information to join us here in today's webinar, you can also go to Facebook. If you're on Facebook, go to American Indian Graduate Center Facebook page. You'll see there that there is a live broadcast that folks can also join in. They don't necessarily have to register, but I would encourage folks to register. If you are sharing that, you can go to the Facebook page for American Indian Graduate Center and share that post, and that folks can join us today. If you do register, that allows everybody to to also join in and participate with questions and comments just like you can. So just wanted to put that out there as well. As you're looking through our website at aigcs.org, you're going to find a lot of resources there for you as you're planning your college timeline. There's student resources underneath the different options there. You can scroll down and see some videos that we've made in the past, look at announcements of students that we highlight throughout the year. At the bottom of the front page, you'll see at aigcs.org our highlighted students for the month. We honor a student of the month, both at the undergraduate level and the graduate level. So that's there to check out as well. If you do happen to get to the student resources area in our website, you'll find that there's lots of content there. There's different ways you can think about preparing, whether it's just visiting with your high school counselor, your guidance counselor. If you're looking at a particular field like agriculture, maybe environmental science or other related fields, having those type of conversations. Again, Amber's going to share with us next here just some good information on those pieces. And you'll also hear from our student panel here shortly. But as we're rounding out this break time, again, we'll be getting back into our live programming here. Just wanted to share some poll results with you. I think you can see some of those, the results there, and we'll just take a look. We had a few of them in here. We couldn't get all the options in there for the answers on what's available on different subjects you might be interested in. But we got some participation in here. We got the number one subject that folks are interested in is math, and I can appreciate that. It's been my favorite subject, so that's there. That's followed by agricultural or VOAG. 60% of you are interested in that subject. Then it looks like science is the next one. And looks like we got a 4-way tie at a 20%. Actually, it's a 5-way tie, excuse me. I can't see, I don't think I can see all the options here, but we got from what I can see, a 5-way tie in foreign language, drama, art, history / government, and in English. And there's 20% of folks in each of those subjects. Something to think about. A lot of times one of the things you hear, when you look at those favorite subjects, all the experience that you have, those things that you do that really pique your interest in subjects that you're interested in. When you get to college, you might find that those interests may change. You might even find something that you weren't exposed to in high school that's offered at the college level, and you'll find that you enjoy that. And I encourage you to pursue those interests, and really get that full experience. So as we're getting ready to round out this break time, and we're going to get into our next subject, we're going to just post this poll. You don't have to answer it right away. But as we get into this next segment of the program, think about this poll question that's posted. Do you know what universities you want to apply to? So you have a few options to share there, and we'll give you results. But what I'd like to do is, as we get into this next segment that Amber will be sharing with us, go ahead and share that. Think about the things that she's talking about, some different things to consider. Amber, let's see. Are you ready to go?
Yep, I'm ready whenever you would like me to start.
Sure. What we'll do is, since we're a little bit ahead of schedule, is we'll give you your time and go as long as you like. We're gonna have some more time for the student panel as well, but we can go ahead and get started. And I'll turn it over to you, and take your time, and then we'll just go from there. So we'll just kind of adjust here a little bit, but I think we'll catch up with the student panel. So that said, I just want to welcome you guys, all the students back, all the attendees back from your break. And also, excuse me, I'm sorry. We're going to come back from the break. I'm going to go ahead and give this time back over to Amber to share about how to select a college and the topic that she's going to be sharing. Again, for those of you that are sharing this live, if folks are able to register, that will allow them to participate in posing questions, participating in polls. They can certainly just view it live and not register. But if those that want to do that, they would need to register in the webinar. So with that, thank you again, Amber, for sharing what you'll be sharing about finding the right college for you and selecting the right major, as well as looking for or learning opportunities on your college campus. Thank you, Amber.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Gabe. So good morning again, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. When they reached out to me about talking about the college and all the opportunities that were available, I was like, yes, tell me how much time I have and tell me what you want to talk about, and I will be there. And so I do want to start a little bit though, because Dr. Moss gave me an idea, because he talked about his journey and how he got to OSU and how he got to where he is today. And I think that's so important, because sometimes we look at the end goal and we don't really look back at the journey we have taken to get to where we are now and the people who've been around us. So like they said in my introduction, I am a first generation student from a very small town in Oklahoma. It's called Dover. I graduated with 16 students, and I was one of them. And so, but I remember back to second grade, I was with most of the same students all my whole entire life. So from kindergarten to graduation. And I remember in second grade, my parents went to a parent-teacher conference, and my teacher said, your student will probably never get more than a B in her classes. Like, that will probably be good for her. And I remember my parents coming and telling me that, like, it was a little discouraging, like, oh, this person just doesn't think I'm going to succeed. And that lit a fire in me. Most people who know me very closely know I'm very competitive, and I don't like being told what I can do and what I can't do. And so from then on out, I was just bound and determined to do well in school. And I will tell you, it took me a little extra time. It didn't come very easily to me at a lot of points, especially in the math and science areas. And so I just remember working really hard. And when I got to my senior year, my family and I started having the discussion about where I was going to go to college. Something else you should know, I do come from a very middle class family. And so my parents made it very clear from the beginning that they were not going to be able to offer a lot of assistance when it came time for college. So as I started applying, I also started looking at scholarships and opportunities that were available to me. And I want you to know that I did transfer to Oklahoma State. I did not start there. So in the fall of 2011, I actually started a smaller state school here in Oklahoma. A lot of the reason that is because I received a scholarship called the President's Leadership Council. It was pretty hefty. And then I also was able to take a all expense paid trip to Boston with the president of the university where I started. When I started my academic journey in college, I actually wanted to be a dietitian. I just really loved sports growing up, and I was also an FFA, but the food side of things and the athletic side of things is where I was at. And so I went that first semester, and it was hard. I mean, there were times I would call my mom and I was like, I just don't think I can do this. I don't think I was meant to go to college. I don't think like I'm the type of person who's going to finish. And she's like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a tough journey. Well, at the end of my first semester, I went and met with my advisor at my other institution. I was like, so what classes do I need to take to make sure I'm on the right track to be a dietitian? And he was like, well, we don't actually have a program that like rolls you straight into a dietitian program, but you can do XYZ. Well, I just took that as like, you can't do it. So I actually switched to business with an agriculture focus. During that time, I learned that I am no good at numbers, which was really ironic because I was working at a bank as a teller. But when I got into my accounting class, I learned very quickly that it's all backwards. Like what I was learning at my banking job that I really enjoyed was completely different than how you enter a debit and credit in accounting. And it was during that time I did an internship, which I'll talk a little bit about today in my portion, that I was like, I am definitely not on the right path to be where I need to be. And during that internship, and mostly because I was sitting in an office and the whole entire time I was just like, I want to be outside. I miss the outside. I miss the sun. I miss being around people and not being stuck in this office. And a lot of that is because growing up from the time I was 12 to even now, sometimes I'll go home and help my dad. I had a mowing business. I was never inside, except for when I was in school. And so I learned very quickly during this internship that like an office, a cubicle, a chair that was probably 30 years older than me at the time was not for me. And so I went back to school that next year. And I met with our career counselor and I said, give me every career aptitude test you have, because I learned very quickly this summer I am not on the path that I need to be on. And so she gave me this aptitude test, and it was very much directing me towards people. It was like, be a camp counselor. And I was like, okay, well, that's a great summer job, but I don't know if I want to do that my whole life. But it was really directing me towards people. And I was like, what better way to work with people than to communicate with them? You can probably learn pretty quickly. I'm the type of person, I could talk to a brick wall all day. And even though it's not going to talk back, I can come up with something to talk to it about. And so it was that moment that I was like, I need to better these skills. So when I'm working with people and I'm communicating with them, I can do it as precisely and clear as possible. And so I switched my major to mass communications at my old institution. And I really enjoyed it. I learned I loved the classes I was taking. I was learning a lot. But I knew on that journey that that was not where I always had planned to be. And so as a first generation student, I think sometimes our parents very much encourage us to play it safe. They want to see us succeed and they want to see us be successful in our lives, which I think is great. I'm very thankful for my parents. But I was very unhappy where I was, and it was showing in my grades. It was showing in my extracurriculars. I was always very active in leadership roles and with the people around me. And I just got to a point where I didn't want to be. And so that summer I came home and I worked harvest at one of the local grain elevators, and I absolutely loved it. I was outside all the time. I was working with farmers. I was getting to talk to them. And I remember being in rain delay one day, which is where if it rains, it gets too wet. And so you can't store wheat at a specific moisture because it could potentially cause the grain bin to explode. And I was having lunch with my mom. And I just remember being like, if I don't tell her now, I will never tell her. And I remember sitting in her office and I was just nervous and I was shaking and I just broke down into tears. I was like, I'm not happy. I was like, I can't go back there. I said, I will do anything I can to get to OSU. So something you should know about me, I remember being at a leadership event in high school, and some of you have probably done this before, but they gave me this board and I had to write all of my goals on one side, and then I had to write all the things that were standing in my way on the other side, and then you break through them. And my biggest goal that I wrote on my one side was that I wanted to graduate from OSU. And I remember finding that board just even a couple of years ago as I was in this job, and remembering that I just always thought in my life there was going to be a cookie cutter way to get where I was going. And so when I was having that conversation with my mom, I was just like, I will take a year off. I will do what I can, but like, I want to go to OSU. That's where I've always wanted to be. And that's where I want to finish my degree. And of course, as a mom, she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You know, I didn't realize that you weren't enjoying your college experience and you weren't having a good time. And so that's where I'm going to give you the advice to be vocal. Like, if you're not happy and you're not enjoying what you're doing, most people probably don't see that from the outside. And so definitely be willing to communicate that. So it was the end of June. I applied to OSU. I was accepted at the very first, I applied to OSU. I was accepted at the very first of July, and I went to the very last new student orientation date that you could to enroll. It just worked out that one of my childhood friends was looking for a roommate, so I had a place to live. I didn't have to search for that. I picked up and I moved, and I started my journey at the beginning of August 2014 at Oklahoma State University to pursue a degree in agricultural communications. And it was just amazing how big of a difference it makes when you are studying something you enjoy learning. I thrived. My grade point average was doing really well. I was learning a lot in my classes. I was having a lot of hands-on opportunities that I will touch on later on. But it still came with a lot of work and a lot of hard times. And so this first picture you'll see on my left-hand side of my screen, that is from my undergraduate graduation, which as a first-generation student, that is a big feat in your family. That is a large goal that your parents are very encouraging and passionate about you reaching. And I was so thankful for their encouragement. But this is also my advisor, Angel Riggs from the Ag Communications Department. She was also a very big component of my success here at Oklahoma State University. And I'll tell a story about her a little later on. But the second picture on my right is actually my grad school graduation. And this was an even bigger feat because you can see my whole family there. My mom, my older brother, Levi, he also graduated from Oklahoma State University in the fall of 2010, and then my dad, and then you can see my little brother. And it's funny because when you look at my older brother's graduation pictures from OSU, my mom is actually pregnant with Mason. And he was a very big surprise. And so when I started grad school, I was like, I know that this is setting an example for him. Like, I want him to know that he can get where he's going and reach any goals that he has set. And so I will tell you that grad school came with a lot of tears and a lot of struggle. And I even shared this picture with some of my student success leaders, who are a group of students that work very closely with our office. And I just told them, I said, this picture means a lot to me because I almost quit grad school. I almost did not finish that venture because it was hard. And I struggled, but the people around me and my support system here in this college is the main reason that I did finish. And so I only share that with you to say that there is no cookie cutter way, and there is no clear-cut plan of getting to where you're going to be in your life. During grad school, I did work as the grad student in this position that I'm currently in. And that's when I learned that I love to work with students. And I think it was more of a passion because I remembered some of the struggles and the hardships I had to get to where I was going. And I wanted to be able to share that and communicate it with students so they could get to where they were going. And so flash forward, I have actually been in my current position for about 4 months now. And I'm learning a lot. It has been a struggle. Starting any job is a little overwhelming, but starting one in the middle of a pandemic is also just adds a little extra layer to the things that are happening around you. But I'm very excited to be where I am. And I'm very excited to tell you just about the opportunities we have and how we can potentially help you find your fit here and help you along the way to be successful and get to where you're wanting to go in life. So with that being said, I'm going to stop talking about myself and talk about the reason why you're actually here, the Ferguson College of Agriculture. So we are one of 5 colleges here at Oklahoma State University, and we're actually the smallest college on campus. And so just know that when you're here, you're not just a number, you are a student. Your advisor is going to know who you are, and I will talk about one-on-one advising a little more down the road. But you're going to have students in your class that you're connecting with. And I promise you, you're also not the only one. And I say that to mean like, you're not the only student who probably didn't grow up on a farm or with an agricultural background. You're not the only student that is not planning to go into an agricultural sector. We have 15 different majors with more than 50 study options for our students to choose from. And I think it's very important to know that agriculture, again, stems over so many different areas than just animals and plants. And so, but one number that I want you to see that really stands out is our 14-to-1 student to teacher ratio. So when you are in classes, they are going to be small. And what's really important about this is that your faculty member is going to know exactly where you sit. They're going to know your name. They're probably going to know a little information about you. And they're going to be interested in your success and how you're doing. And I'll get to that a little bit down the road. But these are just some statistics that I wanted you to see. And this is based off of our 2019 numbers as we work on getting the updated numbers for 2021. But the first thing I want to talk to you about today are academics. So here is a list of the different majors we have to offer in the Ferguson College of Agriculture. So whether you want to be a vet, a doctor, a chemist, you want to work for the USDA, there is a major and there is a pathway to help you get there. Now, something to know, there is not a cookie cutter way, again, to get to where you're going to be. So both of my degrees are in agricultural communications. 5 years ago, I never thought I'd be in this type of position. I never thought I'd be working with students and helping them make decisions and giving them information, but here I am. And so just know, whatever major you choose, there are not 5 different careers that you can go into. There's so much more, and sometimes you can create your own pathway to where you want to go. So something to know, because students who are interested in the pre-vet option are our largest population normally in the college. Now, most students think like, oh, I'll just go through animal science. Well, in reality, we have 5 different majors that allow you to pursue pre-vet. And so there is a major, and here's what I'll tell you first and foremost. Find a major that you enjoy learning, because if you enjoy going to class, you enjoy the content you're learning, it's going to make that educational experience that much better. Now, I'll tell you, it may take you a little bit to get there. And you may also be anywhere from 15 to 18 years old. You don't have to have your life figured out yet. We have the resources to help you along the way to make sure we do get you into that major you're interested in so you can learn what you are passionate about. So those 5 different majors are agribusiness, animal science, biochemistry and molecular biology, entomology, and then natural resource ecology and management. One thing I do want to point out for students who are interested more in the wildlife and the zoo life side of things, that natural resource ecology and management option is going to be the perfect fit for you. Sometimes there is a little confusion between that and zoology, but this actually focuses on the animal side of things. So I just want you to keep that in mind. But we also have options for students who potentially want to be doctors. So whether that's animal science, biochemistry, molecular biology, biosystems engineering, or entomology, there is a pathway that fits for you. Now, when I talk about these options, I want you to know that those are not the only way that you can get to those areas. Oklahoma State does have pre-blank options that you can choose. So if you do want to do pre-vet, but maybe you're interested in horticulture, you can add that option on. Just know it may take you a little additional time on top of that major to achieve those prereqs that you would need for vet school. The ones that I've talked about, the 5 that actually have it attached, they are built into those majors. So it does not take you any additional time. Same with pre-health as well as pre-law. So we do have a pre-law option under the agribusiness program, and they are currently working to develop one under animal science as well. So, but again, you can choose any major, you can add that option onto it and go from there. So please just know that these are your options. These are the place you can land. But when you start at OSU and when you start in the Ferguson College of Agriculture, there are introductory courses that you are going to take. So it does look a little different for each major depending on what the requisites are before you move into those major-based classes. But a lot of our students will take an intro to plant and soil science class, an intro to animal science class, an intro to food science class, an intro to ag econ class. And we really just do that. So one, you can see a little bit of diversity that we experience in our college. But two, because sometimes students come in and they don't realize the number of options that are available to them to pursue. And so that's where I come in, and that's where my counterparts come in to have those conversations where students like, I was in this animal science class and I went to my first lab and they cut a cyst off an animal and I fainted. And I thought I wanted to be a vet. And if I can't even get through them cutting a cyst off this animal, like how am I going to get through all these other things? And that's when we sit down and we say, okay, well, there's other ways to help animals, or there's other ways to work with plants, and there's other ways to work with people. And so just know what you want to do, there's a way to do it, and we can help you find what pathway that is going to be. But we do continually invest in our students as they move along in these programs. So on the left, you'll see these students are actually working the Greenhouse Learning Center. It opened last fall, and they're planting plants, they're marking them so they know exactly what they are. But this is just a new space for students that are in those horticulture and landscape architecture programs, plant and soil science, to have specific lab areas and plant areas that they can work with. We also on the left side have a picture of the environmental science undergraduate program learning center is what we like to call it. This was developed after Dr. Karen Hickman moved into the program as the program director. She was like, my students need a space where they can work, they can meet, and they can utilize books and computer resources. There's snacks and stuff up there as well. But the pictures that are on the wall were actually taken by students, and they submitted them and voted. And it was just another way for students to have a role in what that was going to look like. And one thing I forgot to mention about the Greenhouse Learning Center is that some of our landscape architecture students actually designed different landscapes for around that area, and people were able to vote on what they liked. And so the landscape that's currently out there was developed by a student during their education process here. And then we will also have a new ag hall in the fall of 2023. So last January, they made an announcement that we received a $50 million donation from the Ferguson Family Foundation. Now, although most of us were aware that there was going to be a presentation that they had reached an amount to go live with our funding for the new building, we did not realize there was going to be a name change. So we have been Ferguson College of Agriculture since January. But one thing that I think is really cool is that this family, who probably does not know 90% of our students, made the donation because they feel our students are going to impact the world. We're going to find the ways to feed people in a growing population. And so no matter where you are, no matter what you do, there is going to be an investment. And a large part of that investment actually comes from the connections you make here in the college. So I did talk about my advisor, Angel Riggs. From the time you get here to the time you leave Oklahoma State, you will meet with an advisor every single semester. They're going to be one of your go-to people just to make sure that you're doing okay, that you're enjoying your classes, and that you have a safe space to say like, well, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I'm going through, and that you're able to talk to them. So 2 stories that I like to tell about Angel, and mind you, Angel is still someone I can go to today. There have been times I've gone to the 4th floor and I'm like, hey, Angel, I have a question about this. And we'll sit down and we'll talk for a while. So I remember my 2nd semester here at OSU. I had just recently changed to Angel. She actually taught 2 of my writing classes. So know that the advisors you meet with during the semester, they will actually teach your classes as well. So not only are you meeting with them once a semester, you're learning from them as you're going through your programs. And so I was meeting with Angel and she said, Amber, you haven't had chemistry. And I was like, well, why do I need chemistry? Like, I'm a communications person. I'm not planning on making some wild concoctions in my kitchen. Like, I don't need to know about this stuff. And she was like, well, every student has to have some form of chemistry class in our college. And I was just like, oh no. I said, Angel, I'm just telling you now, like, there's no way that I'm going to pass this class. So don't be surprised if you have me for an additional semester, because there's just no way. And she like laughed, because I really think she just thought I was being kidding. And I was like, she really doesn't believe me. Like, she has no idea. So I'll be very honest. I got a C in biology. I think I was just very blessed in high school with a great science teacher, because I never struggled with it until I got to college. But I just dreaded it all summer during my internship. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go back and take this chemistry class. Like, I am so close to being done, and this is the one thing that's going to stand in my way. So I started my fall semester, and chemistry hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, okay, all right, this is where my focus is going to be. Like, I've got to do well in this class, because I don't want to pay for any additional schooling. And Angel's probably like to the point where she's like, okay, we've got to get this girl out of here. I was in my faculty member's office every single Tuesday. I had a standing appointment. She knew when she heard a knock on the door, she was like, she'd look up and she'd be like, welcome back. What are we going to work on today? I was going to SI sessions. I was going to tutoring. I was doing anything that I could in this class. And I remember every single time I had a class on the 4th floor, I'd walk by Angel's office. She'd be like, how's chemistry going? I was like, it's moving right along without me, but I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I'm doing well. And she's like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. She was so positive about it the whole time. Well, I will tell you that Angel was the first person I texted when I found out I got a B in chemistry. To this day, I don't know what happened. I'm going to say it was hard work and determination. But I really think it was just making sure that I was going to my faculty member and I was asking for help and just trying as hard as I could. And Angel texted me back and she said, I know, I'm so excited. I knew your grades were coming out. And so I checked to see how well you did. And it was in that moment that I was like, she is truly just as invested in my success at this university as I am, or as my family is. And so it just really hit me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is great. Well, she was probably excited because she's like, all right, I'm done with Amber. Like, I've got to get her through one more semester, but joke's on her. I decided to go to grad school. And she was a very supportive factor in that journey as well. And so she was my advisor during grad school. And what was really cool is that she knew my interest. And so one thing that I just commend Angel for is that she tried to push me out of my comfort zone with some things. And so when I got to OSU, I found out I had to have an internship. And I was like, but I've already had one. And she's like, well, you need another one. And at that point in the game, I was a little late compared to the rest of my peers. And she's like, there's this place called the Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma. They have a great marketing and communications department. I really think you should apply for their internship. And I was like, I don't want to go into nonprofits. Like, I've got to pay back these student loans that I'm racking up under my belt. And she was like, just do some research. I think you'll be surprised at what you'll learn. So I did some research and it just really struck a chord with me. So I looked at the free and reduced lunch rate of my high school and my school, and it was actually 70%. And it just, I think, kind of hit home that this nonprofit was helping students like the ones I grew up with who maybe didn't have the food and things that they need. And so I applied and I went into the internship and I absolutely loved it. I think it was just knowing that whole summer that no matter what communication piece I was making, it was going to be helping someone. And so one of my biggest feats in that internship was I actually had to make a flyer in Spanish. And I will tell you, like, if you have taken a Spanish class, it is completely different than how you write in English. And so that was fun. But I learned so much about myself, but I learned so much about my passions in that area. And so when I rolled into grad school, Angel immediately was like, I already have your research project. I was like, what? And she's like, yeah. She's like, you're going to research food insecurity on college campuses. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. Like, I think that's a great topic. And she's like, and you're going to do this Q study. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, but she was supportive all the way. But I remember as I started grad school, I had this moment like I had my freshman year where I was like, oh my gosh, am I doing what I need to be doing? Am I learning the things that I need to learn? Like, is this actually a good fit for me? And I say that mostly because a lot of my peers in the program at that time had very heavy agriculture backgrounds. I did not. So I will tell you the most focus I had in agriculture was through 4-H and FFA. Growing up, I showed livestock. But that was not my family's livelihood. And I remember going to Angel and her and just breaking down in tears and being like, how many more classes do I have to take? And she's like, I remember telling her the reason why I was feeling that way. And she's like, no, we need more people with views like yours, so the students around you can learn that there are just different perspectives about these topics. And I was like, great. And so I account a lot of graduating for grad school to Angel as well. She was a very good support system. And she just helped me along the way. And so those people are going to be the ones that are there for you while you're here at this university. They are going to connect with you. They're going to learn about you, but they're also going to mentor you through the process. And everybody's faculty advising experience looks different, but at the end of the day, everyone leaves and they're so thankful that they had that opportunity. But like I said earlier, they're not just going to meet with you once a semester. They're going to be in the classroom with you, and you're going to be learning from them. So about 85% of our faculty right now are tenure, and which means they have had real world experience and they came back and got additional education and they wanted to teach. And so as they're teaching you in the classroom, they're teaching you the things they learned out in industry or in the jobs and things that they had before coming back to the institution, which means you're going to leave with the knowledge to go out in the industry and do things how they need to be done. So something to keep in mind is when you're in education, you never stop learning. And that rings true for our faculty members as well. Like, they keep up with how things change. And I can communicate that very clearly just from the ag communication side of things. You know, media has changed, how we get our information has changed, and they've had to adjust those programs to show that. And so the way that we do this is just through different opportunities like hands-on learning. So I touched base on this a little bit when I was talking about the different investments we've been making on our students. So whether that's the Greenhouse Learning Center, the Environmental Science Lab, but the reason that we invest in those areas is because they are where you receive that hands-on experience while you're at this institution. So our college alone has 15 different learning units that encompass about 13,000 acres of land. So whether you're working with animals, you're working with plants, or you're working with people or machinery even, there is going to be a place for you to actually do what you're learning. Because as much as sometimes you can get out of a PowerPoint, I'm the type of person that you can't just read something to me. You can't just tell me what I need to do and I'm going to do it. I have to see it being done. And I learned very quickly in my ag communications program that that's why it was a perfect fit for me. Not only was I learning how to adjust the camera, but I actually had to go take pictures. And then I had to go to class and someone had to be like, these are really bad pictures, Amber. And I'm like, I know, but I'm learning, you know, like I know, but they'll be better next time. And one of my favorite quotes that one of my faculty members told me while I was in college was, we'd rather you fail here so you can succeed out in the real world. And that doesn't mean, oh, we're going to fail you in this class so you just learn a little lesson. It's more of, we want to have these teachable moments with you here. So when you go out into the world and you are faced with this dilemma or this expectation again, you're going to know exactly how to hit the nail on the head. And I thought that was great. But at the end of your 4 years, you are going to come to the end and do a capstone project. So capstone projects do look very different, but it's really just putting all of those skills and that knowledge together that you learned into one piece. And at the end, you get to see it being done. I will tell you, it's probably one of the harder semesters of your life because it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to do those things. But when you go to those job interviews, you can be like, look what I did. Look at what I made. And it's in those moments that you're just like, these skills did come together. And even though they were hard or I struggled with certain areas, I made it through. And now I have this piece, or I have this sketch, or I have this design project that I can go and show employers like, this is why you should hire me. I'll also tell you too, that employers know that our students have those hands-on opportunities, which makes you more viable in the workforce because you're learning what you actually need to do and how it needs to be done. And the only way you can get that is through those hands-on learning experiences. Another thing and another opportunity that students have is just to be involved. So we do have more than 60 plus clubs and organizations within our college that students can participate in. So whether that's the rodeo team or the beekeeping club, there is something for everyone. There is also at least 1 to 2 clubs associated with every single major in the college. And so we have agricultural communicators of tomorrow, we have block and bridle, we have beekeeping club. But something you should know is just because you may be an agribusiness major when you come into college, but maybe you have a passion for bees, doesn't mean you can't join that beekeeping club. You can explore any club or opportunity that you are interested in. But I just encourage you to do so, because that's going to be how you're going to continue those leadership opportunities when you come to college. That's going to be how you make friends. And so when I worked with the Freshman in Transition program, which I'll touch base on my next slide, one of my students came to me and she said, Amber, I'm just not having a good time. I'm not making any friends. And I said, well, what are you doing after class? She's like, I just go and sit in my dorm room. All right. So my first push to her was, why don't we go try a couple of clubs and organizations and just see if that helps a little bit. Sure enough, I see her 2 weeks later and she's like, thank you so much for that encouragement. She's like, I've already made a couple of friends. Like, I'm going back to these meetings, and the more I go, the more people I meet. And so a lot of that involvement is going to show in your leadership skills, but it's also going to show in some of those connections that you make during your college experience. But you're going to have several opportunities, whether that's community service, project-based things. Those clubs and organizations are going to be very pertinent to your experience. We also have some competitive teams. So livestock judging, meat judging, land judging, we have a bunch. And so just know that there is a place for you and a piece that can add to that college experience along the way. But a few other things that you can participate in. The first thing I just really enjoy talking about are study abroad courses. So right now, students haven't been able to go on study abroad courses just because of the travel hold we have on things. But those study abroad courses teach you how to be adaptable, and they give you the opportunity to learn about a new culture and new people while getting class credit. So it does count as an international credit, but you can choose the trip that you want to go on. So Dr. Moss and the Horticulture and Landscape Architecture Department, they have study abroad trips that students can choose, and their course component may be directed towards XYZ. Or maybe it could be like, okay, like we see in Oklahoma, we can utilize these types of plants, but we want our students to be able to go and see like this tropical area and how landscape architecture differs here, and how you develop those skills to make sure you're putting the proper plants in the proper area type thing. And that's just, don't quote me on that. I don't know if that's actually what they do on their trip, but like you have those learning outcomes and you have those learning experiences. Now, something you should know is that you don't have to go with your department. So say you come in and you are animal science, but you know that Dr. Kuzmic goes to the Galapagos Islands every single year on spring break, and you really want to go on that trip. First of all, move quick because it fills up very quickly, but you're not limited to your department. You can find the trip and the course that you want to go on to have that learning outcome. But you may also learn a lot about yourself during those trips as well. And so 2 summers ago, they did a trip to Mexico for students who had a pre-vet interest. And I actually worked very closely with one of the students who went on the trip. Jose Usconga went, and Dr. De Silva went, and then a few other people. But one of my students came back and she was bound and determined that she wanted to be a vet. She got there and she went through the whole trip and she's like, I don't think this is for me. And so you have those learning moments where it may adjust the path that you're going on as well. But it's just a really great way to get course credit and learn how to be adaptable and just a little more about yourself and the people around you that you may work with. You also have the opportunity for research. So students who are interested in research, I encourage you first and foremost to apply for the Freshman Research Scholar. It is a course that you take your freshman year. It comes along with a scholarship that covers the class cost, but you learn about different research projects that are going on. You talk to different faculty members in the college to see what research they're doing. And then you actually get to help with the research project the second semester of your freshman year. And it's just a great way to put your foot in the door. But also know you don't have to apply for that freshman research scholar opportunity. You could come, and as you get into your classes, you may be like, you know, I learned about this the other day, and as I've done more research, I noticed that like they're missing this piece, or I had this question that popped up and I'd love to do some research about it. You can go and talk to those faculty members and see if they would be willing to support you or help you do the research project along the way. But I highly encourage this for any students who are interested in going to grad school or potentially going to get a PhD. Having some research experience under your belt during undergrad is going to be very helpful to know what you're looking at and what that experience is going to be like. And then the final program that I'm going to talk about is our Freshman in Transition program, or FIT. So FIT is a living learning program that houses 100 incoming freshmen who are enrolled in the Ferguson College of Agriculture. You all live together in one building. It's called Village Ferguson. And you have student academic mentors or FIT SAMs who live in the program with you. And it's just a great way to meet and mingle with students who have similar backgrounds, different backgrounds, are going to similar classes, and you just learn together. You're going to have learning outcomes in the program. So we ask you to have leadership roles and go to different events. Like tonight, Dr. Moss is doing a multicultural event. That would count as one of your credits towards the freshman in transition program, because we have a multicultural aspect, because we want students to see there are different dynamics and different ways students learned, and their backgrounds are different. Not everybody came from a farm, but not everybody came from the city as well. And we all have different stories of our roles in agriculture. And so it just gives you those learning outcomes. But I think the friendships and the connections you make are really what highlight the program. So we also have faculty members that work with the program as well. And so they come from different majors, different backgrounds, and they are assigned to different floors in the village. They do events with the students. Last year, one of the events that was a really big hit was a karaoke party. Dr. Danny Belmer in the Biosystems Engineering program, she brought her karaoke machine and students looked up songs, and they just had a fun night, but they also had a learning component. And so they talked about a focus area or a topic before they got into the karaoke side of things. And so it's just going to give you connections, and it's also going to be a great way to spread your wings and learn a little more about what you're interested in the role you can take in the college. That is all I have for you today. I know there have been some questions, I think, that are popping up in the chat box as well, but here's my contact information. I am going to get a list of students who have signed up for this event, so we can send you some of the information that I talked about today, as well as some swag like stickers and pins that you can have with you. But please do not at any point hesitate to reach out to me. We want to make sure that we can answer the questions that you have and give you the information that you may need to make the decision of where you want to go to college and which program is going to be right for you. I will also let you know we currently have virtual and in-person visits happening on campus. And so if you were able to come to Oklahoma, we'd love to have you on campus just so you can see the buildings like the one behind Dr. Moss and his photo and everything else. And if you're not able to, join in on that virtual aspect. You'll meet with an admissions counselor. They'll talk a little bit about the timeline of how to get to OSU and different scholarships and things like that. But then you'll also be able to meet with me, and I'll talk a little more about that major interest that you may have, or maybe you're just not sure, and we can break those down a little bit as well. But just know we are so excited to talk to you today, and we hope that you also want to make Oklahoma State your home, and you feel that family atmosphere that we just really enjoy, and I experience every day, and Dr. Moss experiences every day, because we do want to invest in you, and we want to help you with that journey to get where you're going. So I will go and look at the chat box and see if we have any questions. All right, I don't see any questions at this time, but if you come up with any or you think of any, please don't hesitate to reach out to me so I can answer those for you. And if I have missed any questions, please let me know, because sometimes these don't show up the way they're supposed to on my screen. So
Thank you, Amber.
Yeah, thank you all.
I think we do, what I did was I went ahead and posted your contact info in the chat box. So all of you that are checking it out, go into the chat box. You can find that contact information for Amber. I highly encourage you to reach out to her. And whether you're interested in Oklahoma State programs, all the great opportunities that she was sharing about, the different resources that are available, she can talk to extent about that. And I know there's a lot of information there. So if there was something that was, that you want to follow up on, certainly reach out to her, send her an email, give her a phone call, and I'm sure she'd be happy to talk more in depth with you on a one-on-one basis. But think about that, all the different programs that Oklahoma State has to offer. She talked about study abroad. That's something that I didn't get to do when I went through. But, those are all great things. And in addition to that, As Amber was mentioning, what you're going to find too is that there's a lot of programs that she spoke about that would be available at other institutions that you might be considering, although she explained very well how Oklahoma State sets itself apart. So there's programs there that, certainly piqued my interest. So think about that.
Yeah. One more thing
Go
before
ahead.
we move on, I realized I did not talk about scholarship opportunities with you all. We do have specific scholarships at the university that are focused solely on out-of-state students to help with the cost of coming to Oklahoma State. And we know right now with the current situation that some of you may not have been able to take the ACT or the SAT due to test sites closing and just everything being virtual. So know that information, I will also send that out and make sure you have that. But if you have a 3.25 to a 4.0 GPA and you were not able to take the ACT or SAT, you're guaranteed anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000. And then if you are able to take that ACT or SAT and you have a 24 or higher, you're guaranteed $10,000 or more to help with that out-of-state tuition. We also give away about $1.8 million in scholarships just in our college alone. That's college and departments. And so just know that as much as we're investing in buildings, we're also investing in you through that scholarship money. And so apply, and once you apply and get those things in, you actually get emails and confirmations about the different types of scholarships that you can receive. And just know we're here to support you any way that we can, and I look forward to hopefully having further contact with you all.
Okay, thanks again, Amber. Again, begin to think about that. We're gonna move right along here. Lots of things to think about already. Different things to consider. Again, I had to take a quick break while Amber was speaking, but we're gonna give you some time here again to take another short break just to take a deep breath, stand up, stretch, give your eyes a break. We know how the live format can be. So go ahead and if you haven't left already, it's okay. But the results of the poll questions are up now. So the question was, as Amber was speaking, was, do you know what university you want to apply to? And we have about half of you are saying maybe, but I'm still figuring out the best fit for me. And that's certainly fine. You're still, maybe most of you are still in high school, maybe in your senior year. So you're certainly fine in that regard. That's another benefit of attending this live program, as well as doing the modules and the other parts of the program as well, is that it's going to jog your mind a little bit and give you some things to think about. So if you're still thinking about your best fit, that's fine. Take all the information that's being shared today into account, and it'll be helpful to you. Other than that, we had about a third of you saying that you've already started applying, so that's great. As you already well know, this is a prime time for many of college applications to be available. If you're applying early, that's great. If you're right in line for applying on the regular timeline, that's great too. But about a third of you are doing that, already started applying, and about 17% of you are not really there yet. So that's fine as well. No, I don't know where I want to go yet. Nothing wrong with that. I didn't know where I wanted to go until the summer before I went. So, when you think about, I had applied to a couple different places, but I still didn't know where I wanted to go. So you're fine there as well. So great poll questions. Thank you for participating. But with that said, like I said, go ahead and take your time here. I'm just going to share some comments while we're taking a break, and just kind of tie in some other things and give you some important announcements. As we're doing this break now, we'll have another poll coming up. It's gonna be a fun one. You'll see it come up when it's ready, but the question is going to be, which superpower would you like to have? And you have a number of options to choose from there. I'm excited to think about that, as well as reading what you input there. Want to know what kind of superheroes we got in attendance today. And there it is. Got a few different options there. mind reading, invisibility, teleportation, flying, super speed. Got a good set. So go ahead and take a look at that while we're taking this 15-minute break. Right now, we'll go ahead and go. Right now, we're about 5 past the hour. So we'll conclude this break at 15 past the hour. I think we got started just a minute ago. So 15 past the hour, depending on where you're at in the country, that's what we'll allow for time in this break. Answer that poll. Let's see what you got. Amber ended her comments there with talking about ways to fund your college. She mentioned some really specific ways you could fund your college expenses if you should so choose to go to Oklahoma State University, which is great. Again, she highlighted your ACT scores. You know, if you get a certain score on there, you might be eligible for, if I recall correctly, $10,000. There's going to be other options available as well. Certainly higher or lower, but there's so much that's out there. And I'm just going to say, I know that listening to things, I remember when I was looking at college, you know, there was a lot of overwhelming information. So don't worry if you feel that way. Just take it as it comes. You can revisit this live webinar cast that we're actually recording it right now. So you're going to be able to access it later and kind of go through and check it out. In the same line of talking about scholarships, again, American Indian Graduate Center, we have a number of scholarships available. And I don't know, Michael, if you're able to allow me to share my screen. I can get to a point here, but as I'm talking, I can just kind of show a few things that folks will be able to take a look at as well.
You should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. All right. Okay, I got a number of tabs up here in the background, so please just give me a moment. I can't see that. Just bear with me for a moment. Okay, real quick, what I wanted to do is I posted a link for, okay, I'm just gonna get right into it here. I did post a link for Oklahoma State's agriculture program, so you can take a look at that, but I wanted to bring you to our website while we're taking this break. Again, you go to aigcs.org, and it's gonna bring you to this front screen here, front page rather. And this is what our website looks like. As Amber was talking about, you can go to the website and check out the scholarships they have available there. If you have questions on exactly where to go, she can certainly answer that as well. But what you're going to do is you're going to scroll down here and see different options that are available, some information, some testimonials from our students. Those are always good to read. And as I mentioned before, many of our students that apply for scholarships that are on scholarships come from Oklahoma, as well as all 50 states in the country. So think about that. Here's the students of the month that I mentioned earlier. So these are the students of the month for October. Paul's representing the undergraduates and Gavin's representing the graduate side. So I just wanted to give you just a brief look at that. We have announcements here at the bottom. But what I really want to talk about is the scholarship piece. So if you want to come in here, you can either click scholarships at the top, or you can click scholarships over here to the left as you scroll down. But if you take a look at that, it's going to give you all kinds of different scholarships that we have available, and you can go in and start to apply for that. And if I go back, excuse me, I wanted to point out just a couple that you might be interested in. If you go to scholarships and click undergraduates, go ahead and click to the undergraduates here. Oh, there it is. Took a little bit, but here we are. So that form page that I showed you allows you to click on it. You can go into apply. This is just another area, but it gives you some information about each of them and the requirements, eligibility requirements. So you can check this out as well. We have all kinds of different options available to you. You can see different numbers of funding that's available. We also have opportunities for you to get funding to pay for your other college entrance exams. Once you get to that point, these are going to be graduate level entrance exams that you can take, like the GRE, GMAT, depending on what master's program you want to get to. Of course, that's going to be later on down the road, but these are the scholarships. And again, as I said, they describe what they cover. I wanted to just kind of highlight a couple of them. The Science Postgraduate Scholarship Fund is available. It's closed now, but it will be available at the beginning of the year next year. So when you look at some of these, you can look into what you can be eligible for. But this Science Postgraduate Scholarship Fund covers a lot of science and STEM fields. They range from $5,000 to $30,000 per academic year. That's a great chunk of change to pay for some of your college costs and your cost of attendance. Again, you have your requirements here, but when you're thinking about different majors that you might be interested in, going back to the earlier poll, if you're interested in some of those STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, this would be a great scholarship for you to look at, to include agricultural science, environmental sciences, and other related fields. So this would be a great one for you to look at. We have a Wells Fargo scholarship for undergraduates. Here's another one to highlight, Wilson Hooper Veterinary Medicine Assistance Program. So some of you might be thinking about becoming a veterinarian, maybe even a vet assistant, but as you're thinking about the different positions within that field, this one's going to cover veterinary medicine. So this is a really sort of a niche for some Native students that are looking at pursuing this field. There's not a lot of funding specifically for this veterinary medicine, but we do administer one. So be thinking about that. Again, here, one of the eligibility criteria is that you're pursuing a degree in veterinary medicine or veterinary technology. So that'll be at the associate's level. So certainly something to think about. We have another American Indian scholarship here from Wells Fargo, Accenture, couple videos here. So take some time and look at that if you get the opportunity. Again, lots of information, but you do have some time to really think about what you want to apply to, what kind of time you want to devote to each one, whether you're going to apply for scholarships with American Indian Graduate Center, or if you want to apply for scholarship at Oklahoma State or whatever institution you're considering. There's a lot of scholarships available for you to apply for. One important thing I would just mention before I talk about another critical piece that I'm really thinking about, but think about when you look at scholarships, grants, all those types of gift aid that are given to you, you don't have to pay it back. If you're thinking about student loans, of course, you're going to have to pay that back with interest. But for these scholarships and other gift aid, if you were to apply and receive it, that's money that you'll receive to pay for your college, and you don't have to pay it back. Really important. And I'm sure you've talked about it amongst yourselves, if not with a guidance counselor or some of your teachers and educators. I did also want to mention while I'm sitting on this page, for those of you that are looking at applying for scholarships, if you are part of this program, if you have done the modules, you registered, you're attending this live event today, you are actually going to be eligible to receive extra points should you apply for American Indian Graduate Center scholarships. So if you complete this program, do all the modules, complete the quizzes, and it's not, it does take time to get there. And I know some of you have been working really hard to do that. I encourage you to finish it. And then once you do, you'll be eligible to receive extra points towards your scholarship applications. You'll be highlighted as someone that participated in the agricultural readiness program, and you will receive some extra points towards your application. So that's a great thing to think about. Also, you did receive information about if you did complete this program, you'll also be entered into a raffle at a chance to win a laptop, which is pretty exciting. You know, you may have one, maybe an older laptop, maybe you don't have one yet, but that's certainly going to be something, a tool that you can use once you get to college. So we'll be raffling that off later at a later time, and we'll be announcing that winner down the line. So again, if you complete this program, you get extra points towards your scholarship applications. You also get the opportunity to get entered into a raffle for a free laptop. So be thinking about that. And while I'm talking, if we haven't already done so, we will be sharing the link to register for the program. If you happen to be viewing this now live and you're saying, hey, I'd like to be a part of that and you know, complete that program, we can certainly post that link for you in our chat here shortly. We already have the website here if you want to check out these scholarships, but just some things to think about. I'm just gonna, before we announce the poll results here, I just wanted to just mention one more thing. And I had said it before, but we do have a portion in our website that goes over student resources. So if you click that student resources under the services button, it's going to take you to a video here, and you're going to have a few different options here to really go in depth about each of these topics: preparing for college, affording college, college life, beyond college, and college during COVID-19. Lots of great content here, things to look at. So I just wanted to point that out to you, that this is here. And it's a great place for you to look as you're looking at different ways to prepare for the next steps in your educational journey. But with that said, I'll go ahead and leave it there. Again, if you have any questions about those things, certainly put it in the chat as well. We'll answer those. And let me go ahead and get back to this live poll here, if I can pull it up. Let me go and stop sharing that. Excuse me while I reset here. And what we're going to be doing is we are going to be getting ready for the next portion of our programming today, which will be our student panel. I'm really excited about that. So while they're getting ready, I'm going to try and get to this poll and share the results with you. So the question was, which superpower would you like to have? And we've got some answers in here. I can't see all of them, but let me see if I can share with you what I can see. Well, we got some invisibility superpowers out there. We got flying, some folks with super speed, super strength, element manipulation, and you know, for those of you that are thinking about what that is, it's you know, like if you're gonna like water, fire, you know, if you have control over those type of things. Time travel, pretty interesting. Just a little fun one for you to think about. I think there's some other ones down that I can't view right now, but looks like we had an even distribution on those superpowers. So thanks for doing that today. Okay. Now we have our panelists. Let me go ahead and adjust here. Let's see here, speaker view. All right, I see Catherine, I see Kelsey, I see Tyson. Let's see. Michael, am I missing anybody else? Trying to get the widest view.
That's everybody that's logged in at the moment.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and give just 2 more minutes here. But thank you all panelists for joining us today. I'm excited to join you and have you share with us today. And just so you know, as we're waiting for any other additional panelists to come in, for you that just joined as panelists, we have this live event going on. We got it shared on our Facebook Live. We have all those that have registered joining us today. And I've shared it on all my social media platforms. So we get a lot of folks watching now. We've covered most of our program here, and we're going to really get into this one and have a little bit of fun with it. And while we're waiting the next minute or so, I got another poll question coming up for you to consider. Again, you don't have to answer this right away. You can take some time to think about it while we're doing the student panel and hearing from our colleagues here. But the question in the poll, take some time again to think about that. What major are you interested in pursuing in college?
Those who have already attended college, what major did you major in?
Okay. And if you have already attended college, go ahead and put in what you did major in. This give you an opportunity to see what your peers are thinking about, what those have went to college already have thought about in pursuing their major. So again, we couldn't get every major available in there, but we do have an option down there for you to put undecided, or if you have an other major that you're thinking about, just put it in the chat area. Click that box, undecided or other, and then put the major that you're thinking about that's not listed in the chat box. And so we can see those results as well. But they're all there, so take some time to think about that. Okay. All right. Well, should we have some other panelists join us a little late? We're going to include them as well, but let's go ahead and get started with the student panel. Thank you again. I'm just going to introduce you that for those that I can see, I got Catherine Monroe, Kelsey Ducheneau. See you there. All right. Tyson Janop. See you there, sir. And what I'm going to do to open this panel up, and I just wanted to say, what we're going to do is talk about a few questions. We got some questions prepared for us to talk about, but I'll start it out with allowing each of our panelists to introduce themselves a little bit. You can talk about where you're from, what tribe you're from, you know, what college you're associated to, maybe some of your personal, you know, personal facts about yourself, anything you like. I'll just give you a few moments. Feel free to take as much as you like, and we'll get right into it, okay? Let's go and start with Catherine.
Okay, so I'm Catherine, or I go by Katie usually. I am Cherokee, so I grew up in Oklahoma, northeast Oklahoma, in a small town called Locust Grove. I graduated in 2013, and then I went to Oklahoma State, which I believe you guys talked about earlier, and I majored in a lot of things. I changed my mind quite a bit, but I started out ag business, and then I switched over to animal science, and I got my bachelor's in animal science, and then I moved on to ag education for grad school, so I got my master's there. And then I'm currently working as an ag teacher in Newton, Kansas, and I'm teaching a lot of different ag classes, including animal science, so I do get to use my bachelor's there, as well as some shop classes and some veterinary medicine type things.
Thanks, Catherine. Do you have a superpower?
I feel like my superpower is being able to see my students, like when I'm not looking, like they're in the background and I can tell what they're doing.
So that omnipresent vision. That's good. Thank you, Katie, for joining us today. Let's go ahead and turn it over to Kelsey Ducheneau. Thank you for being.
Tatea akwalue lakotea imachiapi na Kelsey Ducheneau washichie imachiapi. Hello, everyone. My Lakota name is Soft Little Breeze Woman, and my English name is Kelsey Ducheneau. I am an enrolled citizen of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe up here in north central South Dakota. I graduated from high school in 2011, and I was a Bill and Melinda Gates Millennium Scholar. I traveled to South Dakota State University, where I pursued a pre-vet path, and then I learned that I did not like chemistry. I liked my high school chemistry teacher's way of teaching. So I learned that a vet degree was not probably in the cards for me, and I shifted my major to focus on natural resources. I returned home in 2015 and started an online master's in integrated resource management, which is like natural resources, but it also folds in the business component of agricultural operations. And in making that transition, I invested into the family ranching operation. So I am a cow-calf operator, as well as serving as a natural resources director for the Intertribal Agriculture Council. We're a national nonprofit organization that serves to promote the enhancement of Indian land resources for the benefit of Indian people. In being a cattle producer, I learned that there were too many people here locally that did not have access to quality beef. And I was raising some quality beef. So I started a direct-to-consumer beef business called DX Beef LLC. And through DX Beef, I really feel like I've been able to do my part in contributing to the food sovereignty of the communities that I serve here on the Cheyenne River Indian Reservation. So I look forward to being on the panel today. Thank you for asking me to join, and I'm going to do my best to convince everybody that's attending and going to watch the recording that ag is where we need you.
Thank you, Kelsey. That's awesome. The company you were just mentioning, LLC DX Beef, that's so awesome to hear about those type of things. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. I'm sure you'll share. Did you have a superpower, Kelsey?
Superpower. I feed people. I think that's a superpower.
Right on. Thank you for being with us. I'll turn it over to Tyson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
You're a little bit low.
Okay. I'll try to speak up. My name is Tyson Janot. I'm an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa in North Dakota, from North Dakota. I have 2 degrees, both from the University of North Dakota. Environmental geoscience, or bachelor's degree. I got my master's in geological engineering. And then in January, I'll start my PhD program in environmental engineering. Throughout my master's, I did some nutrient export research from agricultural setting. And currently I work for the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality as an environmental engineer, a feedlot engineer, where we look over designs and of manure handling systems and develop nutrient management plans for our state's farmers. So that's a little bit on myself. If I had a superpower, I would hope it would be strength, but I'm not sure.
Well, we'll go with strength. I think there was an option there for Hulk strength.
Yeah.
I don't think that we included in one of the options, but I'll go with that, Tyson. Hulk strength.
All right.
Thanks for having you. And I see Jennifer Martin's with us as well. Jennifer, we're just doing introductions. Feel free to share a little bit about yourself and where you come from, your tribe, any professional, anything you'd like to share, where you went to college, what you majored in. Shows for you. All right, Jennifer.
Hello, so my name's Jennifer Martin. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma and a descendant of the Choctaw Nation. I grew up in Washington State on the West Coast, really tiny mountain town. I have a ton of siblings. These are maybe some things that other students have experienced growing up in big Native families. I went to college at a tribal college called Northwest Indian College, which is in Bellingham, Washington, so close to Canada, on the Lummi Reservation. I did my 4-year degree there, and I majored in what's called Native Environmental Science, and it's environmental science and biology with an emphasis in coming from a Native perspective in regards to traditional food systems and ways of engaging with the environment. And so I specialized in botany and really traditional plant systems and agriculture. And kind of my main goal for my education has been to teach. And so I wanted to kind of have a more well-rounded view from that. And, just as probably a lot of you know, just because you major in science doesn't mean you can teach science. So, and I really wanted to learn more about epistemologies and teaching knowledge and Native knowledge systems from a Native perspective. And so I actually went international for my master's degree. I moved to Ireland for a year, And I did a degree called Culture and Colonialism, and it was essentially a degree that focused on all the ins and outs of colonialism and how it's affected pretty much every aspect of Indigenous lives. And I focused on Indigenous science education systems and working in tribal colleges. That's what I did my dissertation on. Yeah, and so now just finished that recently, and I'm back in Bellingham. I had planned to stay in Ireland for, another year, but thanks to COVID, got kicked out of the country. So I'm back here and I'm working online as a tutor for Northwest Indian College, and mostly in science and writing, kind of whatever students need. And then my future plan is I'm trying to get accepted at University of Alaska Fairbanks for a doctorate degree in Indigenous sustainability, kind of with, again, a focus on sustainable agricultural systems, focusing more on doing more traditional agriculture. So that's kind of me. I'm also thankful to be here today. And it's great to see so many new faces and interact with other Native people and learn about what you guys are doing. It's awesome. So I'll turn that back over to Gabe.
Thanks, Jennifer. Do you have a superpower you'd like to share?
Oh, I really don't know. I'd also like to say I make a lot of medicine, so maybe I can heal people.
Healing, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I see you, Daniel, you just got on. I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but we're just going over introductions. Just share a little bit about yourself, and you're the next one in line. So Daniel, let us know who you are. We got Native students from all over the country, a lot of them coming from Oklahoma. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Thank you for being with us.
Hey everyone, I'm Dan. I went to Dartmouth. I studied environmental science and then eventually film. One of the things that really, so what am I supposed to say? Just introduce a little bit of background about me, or?
Yeah, just a general introduction. You feel free to share however you like. Anything you like to talk about, where you're from, your tribe, what you studied in college, where you went to college, what you're doing now, all the above. Just, it's your time, so feel free to share as you like.
Okay. Well, I'm Chippewa Cree and I'm Northern Cheyenne. I'm from Montana originally. And I spent a lot of time over on the East Coast. I started studying environmental science, and I wanted to make a difference in the world. And I sort of, as I went on, I sort of decided that like the best way to make a difference is to change the minds of people. And so as I went through it, I felt like my impact would have been shorter if I didn't start to like reach out to people. And so that's when I started to study film. And so for the past couple of years, what I've been doing is I've been working on documentaries and just sort of videography and photography work. And currently, because of this pandemic, I sort of settled back home, and I started up a business where I do videography, graphic design, and just overall media stuff. And have been just trying to like get in touch with people to work with people who care about the environment, nonprofits and things like that. And so that's what I do now, but the environment has always been important to me, and water, land, and everything like that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Dan. I think it's all of our panelists there so far. Again, for those of you that are watching, as our panelists are sharing their stories and talking and answering questions, you can certainly pose your own questions if you like. Just put it in the chat down below, and we'll get that in there. Again, there's that rolling poll question that's going right now. So go ahead and take a look at that, and then we get done with this part of the program. We'll go and share the results of that as well. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. It's so good to put some faces and some names that I've known over the years. Some of you I've seen before. We've worked together, so thank you so much for joining us today and sharing with us and all of us that are in attendance, communities all across the country. It's so great to be here with you. I think it's a very special moment. So while I'm going through and doing this with you, I'm really thinking good about those things as well. So Again, this is the agricultural readiness program, and we're focusing in on college preparation, and we're really highlighting, you know, agriculture, environmental sciences, those type of related fields. Many of you panelists today have experience in that side. Some of us don't. I didn't get into it, but as we're going through these questions, feel free to focus in on some of those experiences as it relates to agriculture. If not, just focus in on what you know about. So really what we're thinking about as we rewind our minds back to where our students are thinking about that journey to college. And I remember that it was an unwritten road for me. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what I wanted to major in. I wanted to pose this first question for each of us to answer today, and maybe just talk a little bit about how did you come to pursue the program? Well, let's go with the first program. I know some of you have done a number of them, but let's go to that first program, maybe your agricultural program, if you've done that. Kind of what experience led you up to that moment? And I know some of you talked about it a little bit, but maybe you can tease a little bit more details out of that and share some of those real experiences. And we'll just go right back through the line on this question, and I'll start with Kelsey. Oh, excuse me, Catherine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. I meant to go through. We'll change the order up, but I meant to go through the first go. So let's try that, Catherine.
All right. My path to college, I don't know that I ever second guessed where I wanted to go. Oklahoma State was it for me. My sister was already there, and so I had already been to the campus a number of times, and I just loved it. Plus, I knew I wanted to do agriculture because I did not have an interest in anything else. I grew up on a farm. We had cattle. Kelsey, we do cow-calf as well. And I had goats, and I had horses and pigs. I was in FFA in high school, and that just seemed like the next step for me. That's what I loved, and that's where my heart was. And Oklahoma State is one of the best agricultural colleges in Oklahoma, and I would argue in the country, but I'm a little biased. So I never really second guessed going there, I would say. And then when I got the Bill and Melinda Gates scholarship, I knew that I was going there because it was paid for. So why not? And so when I got there, actually picking a major as a senior in high school, I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do, but I thought business is always safe plan. And so let's do ag business because I'm sure there's a job out there somewhere. Turns out I really hate economics. It's awful, the worst. And I barely made it through my freshman economics class. So I talked to my advisor at that point and was like, I really think I need to be in animal science. And so I went over to animal science with a production option, and I loved it. I loved all the classes I took. I loved my professors. The atmosphere in the animal science department at Oklahoma State is a lot different than in the business department. So culturally, I fit in better. And I loved everything about it. So that's what I got my bachelor's in. Along the way, I did think about changing my major some more, and instead of my major, so Oklahoma State has options. So you have I have an animal science degree, but a production option. So I specialized in production. So I thought about changing my options back to business, and then I was like, had to take business statistics, and that changed my mind really fast. So I did not do well in that class either. I'm not a business. I don't like it. I don't know why. I just can't get into it. Anyway, so I stuck with production, and that's where I ended up getting my bachelor's in. So I did have some internships along the way. I interned in Mexico for a summer with at an orphanage, and we were responsible for teaching the kids there about agriculture and livestock showmanship and all of that stuff. And so that internship changed my life, honestly. Like, that sounds super weird and cliche to say, but it really did. I came back a different person just because of the environment that we were in, and I figured out that I really wanted to teach. And so that's why I know you said stick with the first one, but that was my major internship experience. And so I actually went into grad school because of that. So that's me.
Thank you for sharing that. And we'll go on to, I see Jade. Thank you for joining us today. What we're doing was we just did introductions. So when we get to you, we'll allow you to introduce yourself. And right now we're just sharing some background on what made us interested in the degree that we pursued. So if you have a background in agriculture, please focus on that and, get there. If you're not, that's fine too. Just kind of share about what made you interested in your degree. And so we'll go on over and pass it to Kelsey.
I think you're passing it to me. So I grew up on a ranch, and I traveled to South Dakota State University after, receiving the scholarship opened up doors for me. I had planned to go to a technical college 2-year program. There's actually like a 9-month vet tech program that I was looking at if I did not receive the scholarship. And so receiving the scholarship allowed me to look at the full-blown vet track. And then when I got there, like I said, I realized I didn't like chemistry. But I also had to travel 5 hours away from home to learn that agriculture was actually a career path. Like growing up, it just was, I thought that's what everybody did. Like when you were 5 years old, you had a bum calf that you had to feed, and you had chores, and you'd have to go help in the hayfield, and you would accompany dad to do chores all day long. Like I just thought that's what life was. And I didn't realize that what my dad was doing was a career in agriculture. My family had a career in agriculture. And so I think that that's really important for everybody on the call to consider, is like, think about what your connectivity is to agriculture. Where does your food come from? And who is stewarding the lands that your tribal peoples are, responsible for, your ancestral homelands? And I think that when I got to school, realized I did not want to do a degree in pre-vet. I actually still remember to this day sitting at my dorm room desk, and I went to SDSU's college, like their different colleges website. So university has several different types of colleges within the university. And I just kind of clicked through all of them. And this was back when tabs became a new thing. Like that's how old I am. And I had all these tabs open. And I remember like reading through particular jobs that were available. And I'm like, ooh, delete. Ooh, no, maybe I'll save that. And I just cycled through them. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I thought vet was what I wanted. I always wanted to be a vet. And so I come to this one that was called Range Science. And there was these really cool pictures of a couple of people out like on the land doing grass clippings. Another person was like driving a 4-wheeler outside. And I'm like, well, this one looks like you get to be outside. Maybe you can be around animals, And so I took my first online intro to range science class. And what I loved about it is it was a very holistic approach to studying agriculture. I got to learn about soil, about plants, about people and management styles, animals, wildlife, fisheries, everything. And I learned how your enhancement of your cattle's protein package in their nutrition supplement is going to impact their forage grazing on the pasture, which is going to impact how the soil is being regenerated and their animal health and the quality of their meat that you eat. So I just really liked that it was a very comprehensive, well-rounded approach to the study of natural resources and all of the components of natural resources. And that's when I became what my younger brother calls a full-fledged plant nerd, soil nerd. And I think that what's really important, though, is what always stood out to me as I was feeling my way through taking elective classes, trying to identify what my minors might be in. My grandfather used to tell me, it's not how you get educated, it's that you get educated. And I think that it's really important for us to remember that it's not always a straight shot path to knowing what you're going to be. My brother's in his 3rd semester at South Dakota State University. And I think he switched his major 7 or 8 times already, and he still doesn't really know what he wants to be. But he's still expanding his mind, and he's growing as a young individual, figuring out what he does and doesn't like. And just don't he's had a lot of stress about it and had anxiety about not knowing where he wants to be. And I just got lucky, quite frankly. I fell in love with botany and plant health. And so just don't stress about it. Just know that it's important to continue to learn.
Thanks, Kelsey. And we're on to Tyson.
So my story kind of jumps around a lot. Growing up on my Indian reservation in Belcourt, North Dakota, I really didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so our local tribal colleges, they had these little summer programs where they accepted a certain amount of students to attend these summer camps. And I didn't get accepted, actually, but my mom forced me to attend, and so I went. And then I became a part of this program that exposed me to different disciplines of engineering, science, etc. And there was always a cultural aspect to this summer program. And I can't remember the lady's name. She's actually related to me. Anyway, she mentioned something in one of her lectures one day, that water is our most precious resource. And so from that moment on, I always knew that I wanted to study water quality or something surrounded of water quality. And so I went to the tribal college, my local tribal college, Tremont Community Tribal College. I wasn't sure still what I wanted to pursue as a degree. And so I decided, I kind of like my high school teachers, I want to be a high school teacher. And so I enrolled into their secondary education program to study secondary science, maybe become a biology teacher. I was interested in the environment. And so I did that for 2 years. And then I ventured off to the University of North Dakota, where I was still in the teacher education program. But I always knew that's not what I wanted to do. And so the length of time I was at the university my first time around was only 3 to 4 days, when I actually withdrawed from my classes, and I went back to the tribal college. And when I went back, I took a series of classes trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, with my career. And I took an environmental science class from soon-to-be Dr. Blue, and she kind of structured the course in a way where it showed you the career opportunities of a particular career field. Also, it showed like the figures, like the salaries and stuff you're going to make, the kind of people you could work with, and that really struck me. And kind of from that moment on, I knew what I wanted to do. And so I reapplied to the University of North Dakota, got accepted, studied there for 3 years, and got my bachelor's degree in environmental geoscience. After my bachelor's degree, I kind of wanted to work in the oil field in North Dakota. It's kind of a big thing, but I wanted to gain experience. At the time, the oil field kind of went down a little bit, so they weren't really looking for newly college graduate scientists. And so then another opportunity came about, and I worked in Mandan, North Dakota, with the USDA. There's a research facility here, and I was actually a soil scientist, aid technician. And so this position, working with Dr. Mark Liebig, I kind of gained the basic understandings of the soils and how to apply different nutrients and things to the soils, collect soils, analyze them in the lab, and to see what's the nutrient value of a soil. And so this experience kind of led me on into developing a more understanding of water quality, because everything that is in our soils is eventually going to lead off into our surface waters and into our overall water quality. And so then I decided to go back to school to get a master's degree and to do a research project surrounded by water quality. And at the time, there was a professor at the university, Tafik Mahmood, who was interested in doing nutrient transport. And so that's what we did for my research project. Our watershed affects actually 2 tribes, my tribe, Turtle Mountain, and Spirit Lake Nation. And the headwaters of this watershed, all the water from the agricultural fields flows into the only terminal lake in the Western Plains, and that's Devil's Lake. And so we kind of calculated the loads of nutrients and stuff coming from the fields that are going to enter into the Devil's Lake. So right now, nutrient export is a very big issue in the world because algae blooms. I don't know if you guys are informed about the different algae blooms that are occurring around the world and in the US. And so this is an issue to kind of understand how our nutrients are affecting our ecosystems, and you know, just how our people have a fresh source of water. And honestly, the research that I conducted and the experiences that I went through developed my resume enough to land the job that I have now, where I look over manure handling systems and develop nutrient management plans for our North Dakota farmers. And this also led to my interest in pursuing a PhD, and now I'll start that in January, like I mentioned before, but also the research project that I have in mind is going to be transport of herbicides, insecticides, and stuff into our surface water. We're going to try to, I don't know how good it's going to turn out, but it's an idea right now. So that's my journey from elementary school to pretty much my college career and to my professional career as of now. So.
Thanks, Tyson. Appreciate that. I was really, as you all are talking, I'm taking a little bit of notes here, and I can't keep up with some of you, but what I am taking in is just all the opportunities and all the work that's being done. So as I'm thinking of Catherine, which you were mentioning, Kelsey, Tyson, thank you. But we'll move along here. We had Tyson. I think we're on to Jennifer Martin, if I'm correct here. So, Jennifer.
Hi again. Let's see. So as I mentioned it when I was introducing myself, I grew up in a really rural area. Sounds like a lot of you grew up in rural areas. But mine really was not agricultural. Mine was a mountain town. Had predominantly logging and mining, kind of those ghost towns that are all built on a single industry. And it was really poor. And I wouldn't say the quality of like education was particularly great. My parents actually homeschooled me. I also have 7 siblings, so we're kind of a big family, and they homeschooled me till high school, but I was really involved in the community. You know, one of my parents' reasons for homeschooling was because we were still lived a fairly subsistence-based lifestyle, and so we took sometimes months off at a time to go hunting and gathering and fishing. And so really for me, I was kind of a weird kid, and I had a lot of kind of some developmental struggles, and you know, grew up with a disability. And so for me, being able to be outside and go up in the mountains and just fish and pick mushrooms, and I mean, really the plants kind of became my friends. And so there wasn't a whole lot of, you know, I struggled in school. Like I got good grades, but it was more so out of like this pressure to perform than it really was about wanting to learn. And I was kind of right in the middle of my siblings. And so I always felt that need to like prove that I was as smart as my older siblings, you know, who were really smart, are really smart. And I always kind of was a bit different, had kind of a different, I think, path than my older siblings. So neither of my parents really got formal education, at least not when I was growing up. My dad did like correspondence school when I was a kid, got his bachelor's through the mail, really. And my mom, her big idea was to put all 8 of us through school. And then she went back and got her bachelor's recently, which we're all very proud of her. And so, you know, I went homeschooled till high school. I went to like this dinky, super ultra conservative private school for a while, which was a terrifying experience. And then I went to our public high school, which wasn't that much better. I mean, our mascot was like a huge red Indian named Chief Wahoo, you know, and so like, can imagine growing up there wasn't the best. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do for college. Because I had struggled in school and with my health, I really wasn't sure that was an option for me. But I was really, really blessed to receive the Gates Scholarship and a couple other scholarships that essentially, at least on one level, opened up the pathway for me to choose something to go to school. And all of my siblings ahead of me had gone to private schools. And that really wasn't something that I wanted to do, much to my parents' chagrin. I think they kind of took the idea that because they didn't get an education, not only did we need to get an education, but we needed to be better than everybody else, and we needed to go to the fanciest school possible. And so there was a lot of pressure. And I chose to go to a tribal college, and that like didn't really go over super great with my family at first, or with the community I grew up in. But I'm so glad I did. It was a great experience for me. I got to move away from home for the first time. I moved up to Bellingham, which was about 6 hours north of where I grew up. And it was the first time really that I had been able to be around people that were like me. You know, I grew up pretty far from my tribal community. And it was the first time I'd been around people who thought about the world the same as me. So that's something that honestly I do think is really important. Like just talking to the students there, if you decide to go to college, or whether it's a tribal college or not, it's really important to find people wherever you do go to school that can give you support, that, you know, if there's like a Native group there or a multicultural group there, that's really important. And my first plan was to just get my AA at the tribal school, which sounds like Tyson. And so that's what I did. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to go to like a fancy school. And so I transferred to Seattle Pacific in Seattle and flunked out like in like 2 quarters and ended up in the hospital from anxiety. It wasn't a good fit for me. And I think that it was a good experience for me to realize that like sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform or to comply to kind of exterior ideas of who we should be or what we should be doing with our life, rather than maybe like going easy on ourselves and giving ourselves time to just learn and grow. And so I ended up taking a year off. I got married, and then I moved back to Bellingham and finished my degree at the tribal school I started at. And I focused on really like the first thing that I grew up learning, which was plants. And I had a great academic advisor who did most of his career working with Indigenous people in British Columbia on mostly like ethnobotanical studies. So he really mentored me, and you know, and I had some good classmates who were also in the same program. And it really, and because I had such a great teacher, that was what really pushed me into like wanting to teach myself, because this older gentleman invested in me, and he really was kind of one of the first people in my life that really made me feel like I was smart. And like, you know, it was a great experience for me. And so I would also just say, you know, don't feel like you're boxed into going to really specific types of schools either. You know, like our tribal colleges are awesome. And there's a lot of great opportunities there. And there is something to be said about getting a chance to study close to home or study with other Native people. And so now I'm just kind of trying to take it easy and figure out what to do next with my life. I'm still trying to engage with other Native students at the school I went to, and just, I guess, try to offer support in the areas that I know that I needed when I was in college, which was being homesick, being lonely, you know, all the fears that we have when we go to school for the first time. And, you know, and then kind of those learning how to write at a college level, learning how to do math at a college level, all these things that we don't realize are going to be hard or challenging before we get there. Yeah, and that's just kind of where I'm at now. You know, I do love research. I do love learning. I'm trying not to be too dogmatic about what I decide to do, because that's the problem. When you like too many things, it's really hard to narrow it down and decide what you want to do. But yeah, again, thank you. I hope that you guys keep an open mind and just enjoy learning from all these really fantastic Native scholars that are on this panel today. Thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer, for sharing that. I just, I'm with you there. I thought coming through college and being so interested in many different things, I was kind of clueless on what to nail down. And even after college, it was the same thing. But I always found that, you know, wherever we find ourselves, we do the very best job that we can, you know, that's going to turn out all right. And I do appreciate you sharing some of the challenges you experience, because as we think about, you know, as students, all of you that are watching today, if you're in high school, wherever you're at in your high school career, you've faced some challenges thus far, and some of us probably face a lot of really tough challenges thus far in our lives. So, you know, that becomes a part of our operations. But I'm just kind of just bouncing off of what Jennifer said and sharing those things. So sometimes it takes some challenges in our lives, some resets to where we, you know, maybe the TCU, the tribal environment, or a smaller college environment, something that fits. Maybe we do well in a larger setting. So that's fine too. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. I wanted to share that just for a moment. But we'll go over to Dan and let you share, Dan, what brought you to your interest in pursuing your major.
Well, I never really started with environmental science or agricultural stuff. Ever since I was little, I always wanted to be a doctor. And that's what actually brought me to college. And that's what made me want to get the good grades and everything to get there. And my sort of background growing up was like, I grew up on the res Flathead here. And then I took a lot of part times, like we would go and we would dig camas and Bitterroot, and we would do all of that stuff. And that was like really key to me growing up, you know, developing that relationship in the community, you know, and just sort of like having that, you know. And so like when I was in high school, I felt like I could do anything, you know. And I had all of these people that supported me. And I remember one of the things that was really big to me was that I started a lacrosse program. I was like, you know, we need to be teaching Native games to people. You know, we need to revive this. We need to have that so that's like people know that we're here on the res and that we're doing big things, you know. And when the first couple of years, no one was like respected it. They were like, oh, whatever, it's not real, you know. But after 2 years, then everything like took off. You know, we started to win awards for sportsmanship. We made the news and everything. And I was like, you know, I was pretty high on life. You know, I was like, oh yeah, you know, this is gonna be perfect as I go into college. But then when I turned 16, after I'd done that stuff, I left home. And so I was on my own. And I was staying and I was working on farms and stuff like that in exchange for, you know, housing. And so like my background was that, and like I got to know like, you know, rodeo, and I got to know cows, and, you know, just sort of like cattle and management and stuff like that. And like at the same time I was still playing sports and I was still going to school and everything like that. And then when it was time to go to college, like I barely skirted by, you know, because I was on my own. And I remember showing up at Dartmouth, and it was really like alone, because it was sort of like everyone there didn't have the same sort of stuff as me. They didn't have the same background, you know. And it's just sort of like when I got there, it was very like, it was an Ivy League institution, you know. So it's sort of like the people there, they all had money and they were all way different, you know? So it was sort of like, I felt alone, but here I was going to be an aspiring young surgeon. And I was there for a year and it crushed me, you know? I was like, oh man, I'm competing with people that had private education. They had tutors growing up. They had all of this stuff, you know? And then I remember I was like, okay, well, I think I'm doing good. And I was doing really well. And I got an internship and I was in Washington State and I was working at a cancer center. And then like, I couldn't handle it, you know? And I was like, I can't be around this. And I didn't feel like I wanted to do research, you know? Because like one of the ways that the surgeons there told me is like, the only way I can handle like being around this environment is like searching for a cure for cancer. And I was like, I'm not research oriented. I'm more of someone who's like hands-on doing stuff. And so then I was lost. And so like after my first year in college, after all of my background and everything that made me strong, being native and doing all of this stuff, it just sort of felt like I was alone, I was lost, and I didn't know what to do. And so then it was just sort of like, I guess I liked chemistry, you know? And so I started to study that and I thought, man, I'll just do something that gets me a good job and I'll take care of my family. I'll do all this stuff, you know? And like, I kind of felt like an obligation to help, you know? But then like, I spent like a year and a half doing that. I filled out all the prerequisites for chemical engineering and everything like that to make good money and do all that stuff. But then it was just sort of like, I never wanted this. You know, it's sort of like, what am I doing? You know, like I hate this. I hate what my sort of life has become, you know. I stopped playing sports, you know, I stopped playing lacrosse because I needed more time to study. I need to do that stuff. And it was just sort of like, why? You know? And so then what I did after that was like, I need to return to my roots of everything. Like, so I was like, what's something that's always been important to me? The environment's always been important to me. That connection to land, that connection to place has always been important to me. And that's where I drew my strength. And so like, then I was like, okay, well, I'll start to study environmental science, you know, and then I'll start to get into this stuff. And so I took a class and I was like, okay, you know, this is just the stuff that I knew and the stuff that I was comfortable. And it was just sort of like, it was sort of in that moment that I felt like I was thriving again. You know, it was like that community of people that like had that same sort of connection. And it just changed everything about where I was. I wasn't lost no more. I returned to home, you know? And so from there, I started to study that stuff. And then I took a class that sort of really changed everything for me. It was agroecology. And part of the project there was we worked on this organic farm that the Dartmouth had. And I would just go in and I remember like, I mean, I don't know if you guys like it, but I really like food, man. Like, and I was like, oh, tomatoes or whatever. I never liked tomatoes. But when they served me like an organic tomato and I tried it and it just tasted so much different because of the like, you know, the management and the stewardship of it. It was just sort of like, wow, it makes a difference in how you do things, you know? It's not what you do, it's how you do it, you know? And then I was like, here we go, you know? It's like, this is such a big difference and people don't really know, you know? Because well, here in my community, people are just like, oh, it's the tomato's a tomato, it's whatever, you know? And it's like, well, I don't know, man. Like when you start to do something in a way that you start to feel like you become a steward of the place that you're in, you create that land connection, everything like that. That's when you find that strength. And so for me, that moment changed everything. And I was like, how do I move forward with this? You know, how do I take this experience that sort of changed how I'm living into helping other people to like find that, you know? Because I felt like there's a community at Dartmouth, like NAD, Natives at Dartmouth, but it's sort of like it didn't feel like we fit in, you know, because it's such like a white Ivy League institution, you know, and it was sort of like, you know, this is sort of like, you know, we had that community, but we didn't have anything else, you know, and so like having the ability to start talking about the environment to people broadened my community. And then as I started to work with it, I decided that like, I don't know how I'm going to reach a greater audience, you know, how am I going to reach people? And I was like, well, video is kind of the future, I think, how we represent people and culture with agriculture, you know, how we tell the stories and everything that are there, you know, how we get people to understand that indigenous knowledge is important, that stewardship of the land is really important, and how we bring that all together is by showing film, you know, by showing people that like wouldn't normally be interested in that, but then you package it up in a nice way that they're like, wow, you know, I guess it is important, you know, because I think the greatest thing in the world that causes the evil in the world is ignorance. You know, it's just not knowing, you know. And so from there, I started to work more. And this is another thing that really changed things for me, was that I started to develop relationships with my professors, you know, like I was alone, but like after that point, when I started to like talk to them and everything like that, they helped guide me into different things. And then eventually it wasn't hard anymore. You know, it was the right fit. And when that moment comes, you kind of know. You know, it's like I have like this theory that like all of our genetics is just sort of the concept of like all of the knowledge passed on from everyone that came before us. And when we start to reconnect with that, that's when you know, and you get the fulfillment. And so when that happened, that's when it started to work for me, when I started to tell those stories again, you know. And so from there, basically I started to make videos about like the organic farm and stuff like that, just doing small stuff and sustainability. And that's what I felt was like really important to me, you know? And then eventually it led to like bigger things, you know, like I got a grant to go out and to like go into communities and talk about like stewardship of land, of water, and food, specifically food, you know? And it's like, we all eat, that's our connection to land, you know? And it's like how we get that presented to people is really important. And so that's what caused it, you know, as I guess to put it up, to sum up my experience getting into like agriculture and everything like that, was just going back to reconnection to myself, my people, and land, you know. And so then now it's like I've worked on a couple of films and I've traveled internationally, you know. We were making a film about Maori stewardship of land and ocean, you know, and so we were making a surf documentary basically. And I was able to do that just because I started to develop relationships with my professors, you know, and it started to get out and to look for the same sort of similar people that had those ideas. And I think that's one of the most important things that you can do in college, is to find those people that want to do things with you, you know. And so, yeah.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. Really listening to you there, but when you're talking about, you know, your progression through, and it just made me think of one thing, and I just wanted to share it real quick. We're going to do some open questions here and kind of shake it up just a little bit, have a little bit of fun here. But it just reminded me a little bit about, you know, one of the things I heard recently is sometimes when we think about our journey through our own lives, sometimes we have to leave home to come home. And it just really made me think about that as you were talking. Sometimes we have to leave home to come home. We have to lose ourselves sometimes to find ourselves. And so that's something I've been thinking about recently. I didn't leave until go somewhere else until after college, but some of us may do that during college. But thank you for sharing that. And we'll go over to Jade. We'll go ahead and give you some time just to introduce yourself a little bit. Thanks for joining us. Give yourself some time to just introduce yourself, talk about yourself just a little bit, and then maybe touch on what led you to your interest in the major that you pursued. Thanks, Jade.
Thank you. I'm Pati Washte. Good day, everybody. I'm currently on Onondaga territory in Syracuse, New York. So I just wanted to acknowledge where I am at the moment. I grew up in Palm Springs, California on the Agua Caliente Indian Reservation. So it was an urban res. So I grew up in an urban lifestyle. And then I decided to go to UC Davis for my undergraduate, because now I'm in a master's program here in Syracuse. But I wanted to go into veterinary medicine. That was my pathway for my undergraduate. And but my tribal affiliations are Oglala, Lakota, and Tongva, but also I'm Chicana as well. But I want to acknowledge that part of my identity first. And my transition to UC Davis was I wanted to work with animals. I wanted to conduct like rural veterinary medicine, to be able to reach out to those areas that don't have as many access to resources, or to help my people or help communities that need the help at a very reasonable price. So that was my passion at the first that I wanted to go into for my coursework, and to work with cows at Davis and pigs and different animals that I know that I love animals no matter what. But along the way, I took this class at Davis. It was called Biology 2B. It was the second set of the biology series focused on ecology and conservation of species. And that got me an interest of switching my major from animal science to wildlife, fish, and conservation biology, because over time, I realized in those animal science classes, I'm not talking negative about them, it's just my experience and my perspective, was being able to know that these courses are so focused on economics, and they're focused on what do we gain from this animal, and they're not understanding the interconnectedness and the relation to these species and the importance of conserving these for the future, conserving them in general. So then I kind of switched my major, because I was like, I don't want to go into upper divisions that focus on lactation and different types of fields that I'm not too interested in going on into the future. So then I took that class, and then I switched my major. And then that summer I did a veterinary medicine track, or not, a veterinary medicine program, because I was like, okay, maybe I still want to go into the veterinary medicine field, still work with animals. And it was called the Summer Enrichment Program. It's held every year for UC Davis. Actually, not even just UC Davis students. It's any undergraduate. It's a summer program for like 10 weeks that has a stipend as well, and it's for minorities in veterinary medicine. It's a very beneficial program because it allows you to go to different departments at the veterinary hospital, in the cardiology department, neurology, equine medicine. So that was a great experience, because it was just something that I was able to go to. One, the UC Davis Veterinary Hospital, which is known around the world, but it gave me that hands-on experience to see, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? And then that program happened, and then I took the SAT, not the SAT, that's old, the GRE for graduate school, because then after those years, I'm like, I gotta get this stuff done in 4 years, and I have to apply my third year, or the year advancing. So I was just in the mode. I was 20 years old taking a GRE exam, and I'm like, I think I can do this. So I took it, and then I did the next year at school, because I did about like 4 quarters and an extra quarter for my undergrad. And then I did a research program for our research experience for undergraduates at Humboldt State University, and it was focused on looking at the conservation of a bird species along the coast of the Humboldt County area. So I compared the success of the bird species, comparing it to oceanic conditions, to see if the way the ocean moved affected the way they raised their young. And that was pretty cool, because I got to learn about NOAA, the National Oceanic Administration, I forgot the acronym of that, to see the way that the ocean patterns affected, of course, the cycles that are present in the water, from the invertebrates, then to the fish that eat the invertebrates, and to the birds that eat the fish, to see if those ways that the ocean was moving affected all the food cycles. But I just focused on the birds, but then of course discussed that in my research. So that got me an interest in research, because I was like, oh, this is cool. I get to kind of integrate this to what I want to do in conserving, but I still had that notion of veterinary medicine with that. And then when I had that experience in research and then experience in my veterinary medicine, I'm like, how am I going to do the two? How am I going to balance it out? And so I was looking at DVM/PhD programs to see if I can do a dual degree. And that didn't really work out, because there's a program that was going to be 8 to 10 years. I'm like, no, I don't want to do the same thing for a long period of time, or I wasn't interested in it much. And then I did another research program at Arizona State University, and that was on macroinvertebrates. So I looked at a telescope, the previous research experience, and then to a microscope looking at little bugs, which are cool. And that gave me that acknowledgement of looking at the different perspectives of what surrounds us and at any level, because with the macroinvertebrate research, I looked at how flow regimes affected their community composition. So seeing how natural processes affect the species that live in there or contained in there. So I had an experience with agriculture at first, which I could have in the future, because animals are so cool. Minus snakes. Snakes can kind of keep to themselves. I kind of moved to a research type of field, but a conservation. focus, because currently I'm in a Master's of Science program at SUNY ESF in Syracuse, New York. And I'm also a Sloan Scholar. So I had Gates during my undergraduate, but I'm a Sloan Indigenous Graduate Fellowship as well. So I'm very thankful for both scholarships that I've received, and to utilize and take advantage or take the opportunity that I have in order to enhance my knowledge of what field I want to go into. So from my journey to veterinary medicine as the main focus, to understanding the interrelatedness of our whole ecosystem, to explain how can I conduct research that allows me to, like similar to what Dan was talking about and how everything's connection to land in place, how can I enhance the knowledge of our understanding of Unchimaka, which is Mother Earth. So I thought that's really important, and why I decided to do that for the rest of my life, or for conducting a PhD. Completing a PhD after my master's program into like natural resource management or environmental management. And my thesis work for now is going to focus on, similar to what Tyson was talking about, water quality. But I'm going to look at water relationships and how that has changed over time with one of the bodies of water here in the Onondaga Territory, the Onondaga Lake, and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. So I think being able to utilize what area I'm around to conduct my research to better explain how our relationship to natural resources, our relationship to the environment, is applicable to any type of academic publication or any academic institution. So that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Jade. Appreciate that. Man, it's just, I feel really just enamored by everyone's sharing. I can't talk to a lot of your experiences. I'm just really just inspired by the things you're sharing. I studied mathematics, so I like numbers, and I kind of look through the world in those terms. But thank you so much for sharing. We're going to get into a different part here, have a little bit of fun, do a little bit of a lightning round. I just want to open it up, and if any of you panelists have follow-up questions for anybody else that's speaking, feel free to just jump in there, and we'll do it that way. So I'm gonna open this question, and I'm just gonna let whoever is first to answer to go ahead and take it on. But we just want to kind of bring it into a few questions here. So when we're thinking about, and for those students that are listening, you're in your junior, senior in high school, maybe you just graduated, whatever the case may be, we're thinking about, what can I best do to prepare for that first year in college. So I want to pose to the panel today, or actually right now, the question that I have is, what's a piece of advice that you can share with our student attendees today? What's one piece of advice that you could share, something that they can best prepare at this point in their careers for that first year in college? Anybody?
I can go ahead and jump in here. And I can speak from personal experience in feeling kind of like I didn't do right by my younger brother in preparing him for that transition appropriately. And he's like one of my best friends, and I guarantee if he were on the call, he would argue that that's not the case. But one of the things that when I transitioned to college, I realized that I didn't carry over like healthy habits that I might have built into caring for myself and my well-being. My mother made sure that there was food on my plate every single meal that we needed food. And so I never had gotten into needing to make sure I was eating healthy. I was active through sports and stuff like that. So like my coach is who kept me accountable for showing up at 3 o'clock and running my butt off for 2 hours every day. And I was horseback like daily, if not twice a day, sometimes riding horses. And so like these things are rhythms that really contributed to my mental well-being and my emotional well-being, and quite honestly, my spiritual well-being too. Like that was what my cultural upbringing exposed me to. And when I moved to college, I didn't have access to horses anymore. Yeah, the dorm food was there, but It wasn't like I could go select what I was eating, and I wasn't always making sure I had gotten a well-rounded diet. I wasn't as engaged in sports anymore. And quite honestly, I learned I'm actually an introvert. So being around that many people constantly and having a roommate I didn't know, I didn't want to go to the wellness center. I didn't want to go to intramurals. Like, I really needed my time to myself alone to try to cope with not having those positive patterns still in my life. And so I really just think one of the things that high school students can do to prepare for that shift is to kind of interpret what you do on a daily basis that contributes to your well-being, and build a plan for when you get to college to make sure that's a priority for you. My brother is now, lifting weights every day, which is something he did in high school. They had a weightlifting, strengths and conditioning class. And he's, making sure he eats a salad once a day, even though he eats Panda Express like 3 meals a day. He makes sure there's a salad involved sometimes. And he makes sure and calls and has someone to talk to, because he is a very conversational person, but he needs somebody that can relate to his lifestyle to talk with. And so just be prepared for that shift. There's nobody holding you accountable except yourself when you're an adult and you're in that position. And the best way to prepare for that responsibility, I feel like, is to kind of hold yourself accountable in that transformative year as a high school junior and senior in preparation for that first year at college.
Thank you for that. Maybe one more?
I can echo that. I would say, so when I moved away for the first time, it was similar. I was used to having my older siblings getting on my back all the time about what I should or shouldn't be doing. And also going to college, I got some scholarship money, and that was the first time in my life I'd ever had any kind of funds whatsoever. And there is definitely the temptation to just blow it all on pizza and all the things that I was like, woo, no one's gonna tell me what I can and can't do. Being from a small town, moving to it's not even a big city. It's 70,000 people, but to me there was so many different places to eat, and it was overwhelming and super exciting. And so kind of what Kelsey said, it is good to keep in mind that you're gonna be experiencing so many different things at once. Even if you go to school in your own state or your own neighboring city, it's still going to be different, because you're no longer going to high school. You're no longer having these people tell you, you're no longer abiding by the ringing of the bell, and it's super exciting, but it's also, it's super important to be having these, develop good coping skills before you get there, because along with the excitement, it's also scary. And a lot of people do experience a lot of homesickness, and you're trying to make new friends, and sometimes that can be really hard. And and sometimes I don't know, you feel really isolated, or you feel like you just can't cut it, and it's hard to know or to build up the courage to seek out help. And so I think sometimes having realistic expectations of yourself and of some of the things that you may experience when you go to school, especially the not viewing seeking help as a weakness. That's something that I wish that I had done my freshman year of college, was actually go to some of the wellness events, or actually go to, since I was at a tribal school, we had talking circles and stuff, things that I was I don't need that, but I really wish I had gone to, because I was super lonely. But I think it really would have helped. And so just have realistic expectations and don't be too hard on yourself. But as Kelsey said, don't go and just expect everything to work out without taking care of yourself, because it's super important that you develop some good self-care habits, make sure you take a shower every day, even if your dorm shower is disgusting, things like that. So, you know, those are just some, I'm sure like pretty much everybody in this panel could tell you some very similar things about their own experiences moving away from home. But, you know, that was some of mine.
Thanks, Jennifer. You know, some of the things that were being mentioned are so critical. And as we're thinking about preparing for that first year, I just wanted to just shift a little bit in the same line. And again, I'm going to open this up for anybody that'd like to share on the panel. We just got finished talking about preparing. So we're talking about mentoring, self-care, you know, making sure that you handle your freedom in a good way. You know, seek out help, have the courage to do that. You know, those are all very important things. So as we're talking about preparing, you know, begin to kind of put those things away on, you know, ways that you can best position yourself once you get there. But just for another quick question, you know, once you do get there in that first year, I just kind of wanted to pose a question to you all in that first year as you recall back to that. Some of you already mentioned it, Jennifer, Kelsey. What if you could just share maybe just one challenge or one favorite experience when you first got to college? It's open to anybody.
I'll start it. At Davis, there was not a Native Center on campus at first. It was in the works. So my first year was, it was a little difficult to find the Native community because it was at this one center, the Student Recruitment and Retention Center, which is on campus at the student, I forgot what the whole building's called, but the Student Resource Center, I would call it that. So there was the American Indian Recruitment and Retention Program that had different events that went on, but this was mainly like on a monthly, bi-weekly basis, so it wasn't too much action or too much things going on for students to meet up and to meet each other. So that experience that I had, I found community more in the dorms where I lived. The friends that I became acquaintances and really good friends with to this day was from different cultures. So I was able to attend different events that were of the Pakistan culture and Palestinian culture as well. So I think my experience that I had, even though I didn't have as much connection to the Native community until my later years at Davis, having that multicultural lens and learning more about different languages and explaining those experiences to my friends today and being so grateful for those is something that was very impactful. That I'm very happy that it came to that it happened and where I am today. So just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Jade. Anybody else? Maybe another challenge or favorite experience you had when you first got to college?
I'll go. So one of the challenges I had from transferring from a tribal college to the university was trying to fill that so-called knowledge gap. When I first went to the university, there was this course. I think back to it now, I probably would have breezed right through it, but at the time, I didn't understand how to learn from a college professor, university college professor, the way they're constantly throwing different critical thinking exercises at you, or do it yourself, not so much guided help. And I remember it was ecology, 322 ecology. And it was just a sword in my side for the longest time. I remember this was my first course that throughout the entire semester, I carried a C average. And I remember before one of the exams, I knew I was going to bomb it. I called my mom, I was sitting out in the courtyard, I called my mother, and I was like, Mom, I can't get past this course. And she said, just try your best, whatever. And I went in there, I did my best. A good thing about this course is that exams and stuff didn't weigh on our final grade as much as I would thought. We had a final project. We were put in a group of students. I had to learn to work with my classmates, my peers a little bit more. And we presented our final project. I ended up with an A, and I was happy again. But the stress of going through that C average, I never thought I would ever experience that in my life. Taught me a lot of different things and gave me tools to work with in the future for my other courses and things. So that little challenge had a bright side to it.
Thanks, appreciate that. Anybody else? Okay. So also just wanted to, I think those are some good thoughts to have once, students, once you get there, you're hearing some experiences of, some challenges and some good experiences that you'll have. And you've heard some here. Also going back here, when we're preparing for college, we've had a lot of discussion on some of the agricultural pieces, some of the other majors that we've been involved in. I think one of the big questions that comes up and that's always on people's mind is, how am I going to pay for college? How am I going to cover that cost? Sometimes we don't even realize how much college costs until we get that first bill. So with this in mind, the question that I'll pose, and I'll let you answer it, is what were ways that you funded your college experience? And if you could just talk briefly about your scholarship search.
Well, I can start that one off. My scholarship search basically started and ended with GATES. That was about my only option. I had pretty good grades in high school, and Oklahoma does what they call Oklahoma's Promise, which pays your tuition for 4 years, and that isn't a academic-based thing, it's a financial need. And so my family qualified, so I got Oklahoma's Promise, which paid tuition, and then on top of that, I was not very proactive in my scholarship search, which I don't recommend. But luckily, I lucked into getting the Bill and Melinda Gates Scholarship, and I ended up graduating with my bachelor's debt-free. They also paid for my master's program, so there are certain programs that you can go into, and they will cover the cost there as well. So I only had to pay for 1 semester of school. So I graduated my master's I think I had to pay something close to $5,000. But in the course of 6 years of schooling is a drop in the bucket. So it was pretty stressful, honestly. When I got to OSU, I didn't realize that everything costs so much. There's like a line item that you pay for the geese that they have on the campus. We paid for the grass, like we paid for the gym, even if you don't use it. And so I didn't realize that all of that costs so much, especially if you live on campus. And luckily, the Gates Scholarship covered all of that, or I probably would not have been able to stay. So that was my search. I don't recommend you follow my footsteps, but because I basically had everything hung on this one scholarship, and thankfully, by the grace of God, it worked out.
Thanks for sharing, Katie. Any other funding experiences and you're talking about your scholarship search?
There's a lot of there's actually a lot of funding for Native students. A lot of times we just don't know about it. I didn't know about most of that funding until I was already in college, unfortunately. One great resource is the American Indian College Fund, which they're not often big scholarships, but one thing that's nice is that they're not necessarily need-based, like financial need-based, and they're also, they have kind of a lower GPA requirement. It's like a 2.0, I think, which especially some of us who maybe had a harder time in high school, or maybe we like learning, but grades isn't always, the easiest thing for us, that can actually be a great resource. And they're from donors and stuff from all over the place. I think Coca-Cola company donates to American Indian College Fund. And so that's something that's pretty cool. And you don't have to be going to a tribal college to get those scholarships. Just throwing that out there. So I learned about that when I was in college. And so there's a lot of different things. There's also the Cobell scholarship, and so there's different options that can be really good resources for people. That was just a quick flyby there.
No problem. We got a lot of programs. I think the big point you named, there's so much funding out there that's available. talked about, we kind of went through the American Indian Graduate Center site earlier, and then we provided the link there as well. We at American Indian Graduate Center to include Gates Millennium Scholarship Program, but here at American Indian Graduate Center, we do give out $50 million per year. So there's that's certainly a resource there. And I'm sure just by a show of hands, are there panels that receive funding from American Indian Graduate Center? Gates Millennium Scholarship. So I see your hands out there. We got a number of those hands. So you have that personal experience too. And for students that are listening in, no matter which scholarship program you do think about, just as Jennifer was just mentioning, they are out there. So take a look what's out there. Certainly check out aigcs.org and see what we have available there. Jennifer, you brought up a good point that there's need-based scholarships and there's scholarships that are merit-based that aren't based on that. And American Indian Graduate Center offers both of those. So encourage you to look for those different scholarship opportunities that are out there for Native students, and keep American Indian Graduate Center in your mind. Once again, should you complete this program with the Agricultural Readiness Program, you will have the opportunity to receive extra credit towards your scholarship applications with American Indian Graduate Center. So there's your plug, but great information to add there too. Maybe just one other, if anybody else, I think maybe it was Jade, you mentioned you went through veterinary medicine. Did you receive any funding through or apply for a Wilson Hooper at American Indian Graduate Center?
I did not, because I switched the track from veterinary medicine. I was looking at it, definitely, because when I went to ACES, I think that's when I found out about it. And to, like, especially for anybody that's veterinary medicine track, I know that there's a couple of institutions for vet schools that have full rides. They're more overseas, but there are opportunities to reach out to their diversity offices to explain what resources they have for students of color, because there could be opportunity. I know that I think it's in British Columbia, not British Columbia, excuse me, somewhere in England, somewhere in that area, that there is a full ride scholarship for some students, if anybody wants to go out of the country. But yeah, that's what my best advice is, because that's what kind of waved me to kind of move away from the veterinary medicine field, because I was like, what funding is there? But I wanted to do research instead, so that's why I leaned towards this decision. But to add what Jenny was stating was also to add the Sloan Indigenous Graduate Partnership. So if anybody wants to go into research, I think and graduate school as another factor of the students who, I know you guys are in high school, or most of anybody that's watching, but to also consider that for your graduate program and what funding sources are available at institutions that's very useful where I am now. So
I would like to jump in and add my
Sure.
experience, if that's okay. So I had a phenomenal guidance counselor at my high school. I give her praise every time I run into her, because she approached me when I was a sophomore, freshly transferred into the school. And she said, have you heard of the AIGC Scholars Gates Millennium Scholarship Program? And I said, no. And had it not been for her asking me that as a sophomore, I don't know that I would have pursued or initiated my involvement in all of the extracurricular activities that I knew I needed to prepare for that scholarship. So for those of you that maybe aren't in your senior year yet, it starts now. Getting involved in community, getting involved in ways that you can tell the story of your culture and tell the story of your community. Those start when you're a child all the way up until now, and then involvement's really critical when it comes to applying for scholarships. Applying for scholarships is probably the best return on investment that a high school student can get. So if it takes you 2 hours to apply for a $500 scholarship and you get it, you just made $250 an hour. That's a pretty good wage, right? So just think about it as that. I know it takes time, I know it's overwhelming, but commit to it every single week and look everywhere for scholarships. I was fortunate to be a Gates Millennium Scholar, and I'm so bummed that it's just the program isn't at the extent that it was available to me, because it opened up so many doors for me. It tapped me into so many networks, but that wasn't the only place that I knew to look for scholarships. I applied high and low, and when I got to SDSU, without even having to really apply, the university reached out and had additional scholarships that they wanted to offer. So you can get them from your high schools, from your communities, different electric cooperatives, to different newspapers that have, businesses have scholarships available, nonprofits do. The Intertribal Agriculture Council has a $1,000 scholarship available that we have a hard time getting enough applicants to give them all out. So make sure you look up the IAC scholarship. One thing to consider too, though, is if you know what you want to go to school for and you're passionate about it, consider pursuing those dual credit classes in high school, because it's way more affordable to take college credits as a high school student, or to even take some time in the summertime going to the local community college or the local tribal college and to take a 3-credit algebra, intro to algebra class or something like that. A lot of times you can apply to get into those before you even graduate high school, and then you have them taken out of the, they have them taken, they're on your transcript before you go to those expensive universities. And remember that this is an investment in your future. I'm not saying you should apply to Dartmouth and go thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in debt on student loans, but if it's a gap in your funding that would prevent you from going, I wouldn't say to be afraid of pursuing student loans. Get into smart student loans, but be willing to invest in yourself and your future to the point of going into debt for your education if you need to. Like I said, it takes financial planning, and when you get that loan, you don't want to go buy a bunch of pizza with it, but it's so critical that we have more Native peoples in higher education, and you deserve it. You deserve that investment in yourself.
Thank you so much, Kelsey, and you're perfect right on time, just rounding us out to complete this part of the student panel. So thank you so much for those really good words on those final thoughts. I couldn't have said it better, so thank you so much for doing that. I want to say thank you to all of our panelists today, Tyson, Jennifer, Jade, Daniel, Kelsey, Catherine, thank you so much. Just give you guys a round of applause. So thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences with us. I think myself and all student attendees that are listening live across the nation can really benefit from the thoughts that you shared. I don't know, before I turn it over to our closing remarks, Michael, if we have the results of that last poll. Let me just go ahead and take a look. Okay, there it is. So just so y'all know, as everyone was talking, the question was, what major are you interested in pursuing in college? And we got a tie between engineering and agriculture or environmental science. Both at a third of you all said that per subject. So engineering, agriculture, and environmental science. Those two, I guess you could say, sections got the most. And then we also have a vote for sciences as a major in college, education as a major in college, and there's one undecided or other, and I didn't see it in the chat, so I'm going to assume that was undecided. So thank you so much for joining us in that poll and providing those questions or those answers there, and in all these parts as well. So as we're bringing this to a close, we went over some great things, but at this time I want to go ahead and turn it over to Angelique, and then we'll go with Amber for some closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, I am just so inspired. Our scholars here, our alumni, the panelists, you guys are all phenomenal what you're doing. I'm just blown away. I loved listening to each of your stories and the advice that you have for students. I really pulled 2 main themes from today. And, the first one, that it was clear with Dr. Moss, also with Amber, and then all of the panelists, there are a couple of themes that kept coming to mind, and that's that it's never really a straight shot, and not always what you think it's going to be. And that seems to be the case. You guys were all just diligent and saying, okay, I want this education, and the path isn't what I expected, but I ended up where I need to be. And secondly, the theme was do what you love. Like, really find something that you're passionate about, and all of those things fall into place. And I think those are 2 great messages. And sometimes those are life lessons that take a long time to figure out. And and just, if someone would have told me that earlier on, I think maybe I would have gotten to where I am sooner. But I also took the long way around, and I think those are great words of wisdom. I just really appreciate everyone's involvement and really the conversation around funding as well. Jennifer, thank you for bringing up some of our key partners. There is a National Native Scholarship Providers Group, and that consists of American Indian Graduate Center, American Indian College Fund, ACES, and IEI. And so those are the 4 key places you want to be looking for funding, and also the institutions. So those are great words of wisdom all day. This panel and Amber and Dr. Moss, just great words for our students. But thank you all. Also be watching, Native American Agriculture Fund funded us today in partnership with Oklahoma State University, and just gratitude to them. NAF, Native American Agriculture Fund, also established an endowment with us in partnership with Ruthlyn Hooper veterinary scholarship that we have. So we keep building up our scholarships and our endowments, and please just keep watching. We have lots of new and exciting scholarships coming open all of the time. But I just, again, a word of gratitude and thanks to all of you for sharing your stories and making me smile, because I could relate to some of the challenges that you've all had, and encourage the students out there to stay connected with us, and to have a wonderful day. But thank you all again. Lem lem.
All right. And I just want to thank you all for letting Oklahoma State University and the Ferguson College of Agriculture to be with you today, and so we could share information. And Angelique's right. It's never a clear path to get where you're going, and I hope you took that away from the student panelist as well. You may get into things and realize, like, oh, I didn't realize that was a possibility, or I didn't realize my life was going to take me here. But I just want you to know, whether you start at Oklahoma State or you start somewhere different, we are here for you. But at the end of the day, and at the end of your college experience, know that you are making an investment in yourself. And it's so important to know that there are people around you that are willing to make that investment as well, whether it's the American Indian Graduate Center, or whether it's Oklahoma State University, or whether it's the Ferguson College of Agriculture. Know that there are people here to support you and want to see you succeed. And they're going to help you get to where you are, even if it is a little bit crazy of a path to get there. I'm so thankful for the people who helped me along the way and supported me, because I would not be here without them. And so I hope you will be willing to let us be those people for you one day. So thank you.
Thank you, Amber. So we're concluding today's time, and thank you so much for joining us, all you attendees, and everybody that's with us. So not to go any further than we need to, I just appreciate everyone being here. Panels, thank you for being here. Amber, thank you for being here. I'm just going to say a shout out to Dr. Moss and Oklahoma State University, and as Angelique mentioned, the funding for this program that we received from the Native American Agriculture Fund. It's been a great time with you all. If there's not any other remaining thoughts, I can go ahead and close it down and let everyone go to the rest of their days. And just so you know, for the last thing, this will be recorded, so it will be available. But with that, we just say thank you so much, and we'll wave bye to y'all. See you later. Have a great day.